All right, good evening, everyone. We're going to call this meeting to order. This is the Brawley City Council and successor agency to the Brawley Community Redevelopment Agency, our regular meeting agenda. This Tuesday, December 3rd, 6 p.m. here in the council chambers. Could we get the roll call, please?
The minutes will reflect all council members present.
Very good, and if we can please stand, we have Associate Pastor Greg Diaz for the invocation.
Let us pray. Father God, we come before you this evening, Lord, just thankful, Lord, for your love, for your compassion, for your mercy, Father God. We thank you for the gift of salvation that you stow upon us each and every day, Father God. Right now, Lord, I just want to lift up this room, Lord. I want to lift up the council, Father God. I ask, Lord, that you would just anoint them with your Holy Spirit, Father God. And we ask for wisdom, Lord. We ask for mercy upon them, Lord, Father God. We ask that you would just bring your love upon this room this evening, Father God. All throughout your word, Lord, it says that, for those who have eyes, let them see, Father God. For those who have ears, let them hear, Father God. And we pray, Lord, that in this room we have clear eyes, open ears to hear and understand exactly what's taking place this evening, Father God. We ask for wisdom, Lord, and we ask that you would just bring your Holy Spirit upon this house this evening. We call on the name of Jesus this evening, Lord. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. And if we can have our Mayor Pro Tem lead us in the pledge. Oh, sorry.
Ready? Begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, please be seated. Thank you for that, and thank you, Pastor Diaz. Go to our first item here, which is approval of the agenda. Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Motion second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, we'll go to the first item on the agenda, which is the public appearances and comments. This is not to exceed 4 minutes, and this is the time for the public to address the council on any items that are not appearing on the agenda, and is within the subject matter jurisdiction of the city council. Mayor will recognize you when you come to the microphone, so please state your name for the record. You are not allowed to make personal attacks on individuals or make comments which are slanderous or which may invade an individual's personal privacy. Please direct your questions to the city council. Would anyone like to come up at this time, make a public comment on any item not on the agenda?
Honorable Mayor, council members and staff. My name is Daniel Schleier, and I'm working with the PD, and I'm currently the president of the BPSCA. I believe it's time to say a few words and to share some thoughts about this year as it comes to a close. It was a negotiation year, and I had high hopes that the PD personnel would be able to receive at least a cost of living increase. Instead, we were faced with yet another set of years of stagnation and even cuts such as merit freezes. I don't know how to run a city, and I don't know how, I don't know about city politics, but I'm a city employee and a family man. As city employees, we are looking to you for answers regarding city matters, and we entrust you with making the best decisions for our livelihoods and specifically compensations. Unfortunately, this year again, the city budget did not allow for a cost of living hourly increase, but only for one-time payouts. Everybody can understand to cut back if times are tough, and I can say that most are willing to sacrifice for the greater good of the community. I can confidently say that the tenured Brawley PD personnel have sacrificed for many years now, and I believe that it's time to acknowledge that we need help. I do understand the frustrations that come with litigations, but I want the council and staff to understand that your employees are the ones who are frustrated and have a hard time to understand why we are struggling again. I want you to understand that this past litigation on our part was not meant to be for being greedy, but more that of a cry for help. Your employees are hurting, and it is time to do more. As you may know, we're experiencing a mass exodus of PD personnel since the last negotiations. I do understand that many employees have various reasons as to why they leave Brawley. However, I have not experienced so many employees leaving in such a short time. I don't have answers as to what needs to happen with our budget, but I do know that we need real change instead of a continuous road of cutting back. I'm quite certain that there are many factors that play a role, including state legislation, which is pressing down on law enforcement and public safety related matters too. But it's on a different time. I do love this city and I love working here, and I believe that Brawley is worth fighting for. Therefore, I urge and encourage the council and staff to be bold about asking the citizens or other city leaders for help, to be bold to explain to the public that we need to boost our city by potentially raising the sales tax, public safety tax to revitalize. But I don't know. We're looking to you. With this, it's my hope that together we are able to move the city forward positively in a better future than we have seen in the past years. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Schleier, Officer Schleier. Any other public comments?
Good evening, council members.
Good evening.
Mayor. John Hernandez, Brawley Get Together Senior Club, Imperial County Area Agency on Aging, chairperson this year, among many other titles that I hold in working with the community. All council members have seen older, aged, and frail members in this community. They were once young children, men and women, who are now older and in need of community's help, just as they did when they were an integral part of a family. We are in our community and are in need of help, just like everyone else. The 2020 census will show that our numbers are large and growing. The vision and the service levels for seniors must be an integral part of any government service, of any leadership, of any community. To do less with less is understandable, but to do nothing with something is neglect to our senior population and is unacceptable. Seniors are an easy target because many of us are disabled, blind, frail, and sometimes disoriented with dementia, Alzheimer's, and many ailments in our community has all of these. Our senior services and our senior population need a coordinator to provide a lifeline and a quality of life that is deserving to those that have paid their fair share for decades. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hernandez. Do we have any other public comment?
Good evening, Mayor and members of the council. My name is Luis Olmedo. I represent Comité Cívico del Valle, a local nonprofit organization. I wanted to extend this invitation, ask for your individual support as you see fit. As you know, the Pure Grow site has been an issue, a concern. Much of the communities, my team and others have been walking around the neighborhood. It was just a reminder of how many illnesses, how many people suffering from cancers, from many different conditions, and while we don't know why there's such a hot spot in the neighborhood of Pure Grow, of people that are ill, that are suffering with all types, their kids are suffering with all types of illnesses. We know that Pure Grow was a manufacturer of chemicals that very clearly cause very severe illnesses, cancers, and among other things. So we know that there's been a little bit of progress. It's been very slow progress. And we know that the California Department of Toxics is proposing some remedies. And among them is to remove the stockpile and excavate 4 feet under the stockpile. One of the things that we have asked consistently is that the Department of Toxics demand from Chevron, who is the current custodian of that property, that they do sampling, or that DTSC, under their own obligation, do sampling of the neighborhood, and they have refused to do so. And they have told me that it is because they're concerned of what they find and the cost of remediating that finding. Okay. And we won't know until they do sampling. It might come out clean, might come out with issues. We were also asking that they clean up to residential standards, and I understand the city has its limitations. We are asking DTSC to demand of Chevron to clean up to residential standards, because they will not limit any future use of that property. And Mayor, I recall in your State of the Union had a vision of residential community there. And that would definitely put a hindrance and impediment in the city making future decisions of what that future growth of that. So we are coordinating a protest against DTSC, a very dysfunctional agency who has let a lot of communities down, up and down the state, environmental justice communities. It is a protest that DTSC choose to pass along this burden to Chevron. We will let them do that, but our goal is to make sure that we make it loud and clear to the Governor Newsom administration, to the Secretary of State, to the acting director of DTSC, that our community deserves more, and I'm asking for your help. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Romero. Do we have anyone else for public comment? We do.
Good evening, Mayor Warden, council members. My name is Julio Jauregui, 1106 Calle del Sol. I'd just like to make an announcement about our fundraiser that we're going to have on Saturday at the Hidalgo Hall. It's for the Imperial Valley Cancer Support Center. It's a very good cause. We're going to be selling barbecue plates for $10 a plate from 1 to 6. We're going to have live music. We're going to have 7 bands playing from 1 to 10. And we need the support of the community. And I want to thank council members that have donated to this good cause. Thank you.
Thank you. Perfect. Excellent cause. Thank you for that. Anyone else for public comment? Another one.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and City Council. My name is Connie Marquez. I'm here representing the Brawley Get Together Senior Club and our Senior Center. I call it our Senior Center. I've been there 13 years, volunteering and helping out. When I came to the center, I had just lost my daughter, and it was like a place where I could find comfort and fellowship among my friends and other seniors there. It's been brought to our attention a possibility to cut or reduce services at the center. It is a place of comfort and fellowship in our aging years. We're not getting any younger, and I know we're trying to do this for the next generation of seniors. It's like a second home to us. This is where we meet, we sing, we dance, we play bingo, we socialize. And this is a place where many times it's the only outside activity for most of us aging seniors. I go there just about every day of the week. It's like a second home to me. And I'm asking the council to please, or the city of Brawley, to keep our center functioning for the benefit of all seniors today and the years to come. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comments? Not on the agenda. Very good. We appreciate those comments, and I would certainly, at this point, encourage it's further down the agenda, but on the topic tonight will be adoption, budget adoption. So some of these topics that have maybe come up, I would encourage certainly sticking around for that portion and having some discussion there on council action. So without any further public comment, I'd like to move on to the next item under special business, which is item 2. And this is, in some cases you could say almost ceremonial, but at the same time, I think a very important moment, not just for council, but for the city of Brawley, that we come to this at this time of the year. And this is the reorganization of officers. And under that, the first action, which will really be the last action that I'm going to take for the year as the current mayor, and that item will be the election of and the appointment of our next mayor and chairperson for the city of Brawley. So what I'd like to do at this time is open that up to council and open it up for a nomination.
Mr. Mayor, I would make a nomination for the election of mayor chairperson for the city council to be Norma Kastner-Howdy.
Very good.
Second.
That's noted and seconded. Seeing no others, obviously, we'll move to a vote. So with the nomination of Norma Kastner-Howdy as the mayor and chairperson for the city of Brawley, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Wharton. I still feel like calling you Mayor Wharton. but- Okay. Well, I have the gavel, so I guess I'll go on to the next item on the agenda. The next item is item 2A2, election of the mayor pro tempore for the city council, vice chairperson for the successor agency to Brawley Community Redevelopment Agency, vice chairperson for the Public Financing Authority, and vice president for the Public Improvement Corporation. Looking for a motion?
Mr. Mayor, I would make a motion to elect Mayor Pro Tem for the city council to be Mr. Councilmember Luke Camby.
And I second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
There you go.
Okay. Unanimous, congratulations. Okay. What we're going to do next is we're going to go ahead and go to outgoing mayor comments. So, Mr. Wharton, you have the floor.
Very good. One last time, thank you and congratulations. Certainly, as evidence, even some of the comments tonight, you can see it's been a challenging year. And I'm not even going to say it's been challenging just this year. It's at times it could be very challenging being an elected official, certainly in times like this. And maybe some of you that have had the pleasure and the honor to experience that, you're faced with many difficult decisions many times. So with that said, I think we collectively as a city, we have moved forward and we've really, frankly, we've done what we've been elected to do, is make some of those difficult decisions. They're not always going to be popular, but at the same time, I will say this. The city of Brawley is very resilient and continues. There is a tremendous amount that has been accomplished by not just this council and staff, the staff, but really at the will of the people and the citizens within this city. With that said, numerous projects. Projects are really the things that people see, feel, and touch, and there's numerous going on around town, all of which we've all, either seen or experienced. But with that, I'd like to personally thank the tireless work of our city manager, Rosanna Bayonne-Moore. Thank you for your continued work. It certainly begins with our executive. And it really goes from there to all our department heads. So our city attorney, our city clerk, and certainly all of our department heads, many of which are here, some of which can't be for other reasons this evening. But we as council would not be where we're at and able to do the things we do if it were not for really the tireless work. I want to thank all the employees and staff members that are truly dedicated to this city. This is a calling. For many, it's not just a career, it's not just a job. It's something where you get to uniquely serve your neighbors, your community, the people you live and work and love. So it really makes it a different kind of work. I want to thank my fellow council members, Luke, for your new and fresh perspective. I know it's been a couple years, and congratulations on Pro Tem, but it's the new ideas, and certainly Sam, ongoing leadership, at times voice of reason. Sometimes it, might not be, but I might have to push back a little bit on that, but and certainly somebody that I've worked very close with on numerous projects and topics and issues, Councilmember Nava. Just when I think of just George's creativity, innovation, please keep doing what you do. It serves the city very well, so appreciate that, what you've brought. As we hand it over to you, Madam Mayor, I know your dedication and your commitment for many years now, serving in this term. Norma will continue to serve us as you lead us into the year 2020. So I truly appreciate the opportunity to work with you. Certainly, I'd be remiss. Could not serve, and I don't think any of us could if it were not for supportive family. And as I look out there, I want everyone to know it's not often we have a sea of support and love out there like we do tonight. So thank you for being here tonight. But I would be remiss again if I didn't thank my family and my friends, many of which may not be here, but the ones that certainly are here, my family, my wife, Susie. Anytime you go to your significant other and run by them, hey, I want to run for office, usually the reaction isn't go for it. But truly has been supportive every step of the way, and I think if you try to count the number of meetings and the number of engagements, it's a lot of time away from home, is really what it comes down to. But she was born and raised here and certainly understands. My son, Hunter, usually when he's standing, he's hard to miss, but, I appreciate his love and support. And all my sister-in-laws, my brother-in-law, which I'm fortunate I have here tonight. So Holly, Dominic, thank you for being here. Last but not least, I want to thank my father-in-law, Louis Hausman, and I think I mentioned him at the mayor's address, but I really want to honor his citizenship. Because as I really recall life here in Brawley, I've learned a lot through the lens of someone that was born here many years ago. I'm not trying to date you, Lou, but you do tell the stories. And one of the ones that I'll never forget that he'll echo to anyone is if you were to ask Lou, where would you rather live? You've been all over the world. It's amazing. He will look you right in the eye and say, there's no other place in the world I'd rather be but live in Brawley. He only caveats that with this, or it'd be within 100 miles of here. So in other words, maybe Palm Springs, maybe Yuma, but if you notice, very similar to life here in Brawley. So I always found that amazing. And his family's grandfather moved here in 1905, and you can see that, like many of us here in this room, you truly do fall in love with the community. So, Lou, as that, I would like to take my what sort of a liberty of with the mayor's permission here, sort of an appointment as the past mayor, and officially honor you. And this is a tradition that council member and former Mayor Nava, I really started, and I thought it was a beautiful thing where he honored his both his father and his mother. So you will be succeeding great company. The former mayor of the day, Ms. Nava, I would like to present you with Mayor of the Day for the city of Brawley is my last act, so we can give Norma a little bit of a break for 24 hours.
That's fine.
And if you don't mind, if we can have you come up, I'm going to come meet you down here, and I'm going to read this and hand this to you. So I get to embarrass you. Come on up.
He's embarrassed.
Embarrassed right now. Gotta go up. You're the mayor. Using the mayor.
You guys, this, I lost my father when I was 19, and this is a man that, when I moved down here, that really killed him in that position. And he's a great grandfather, a great father-in-law, but he's a great citizen. He really believes in this community, so this is a huge honor for me. I shall hereby known to all, Louis R. Hausman, on this 3rd day of December 2019, has been made mayor of the day, in witness whereof I have hereunto set my hand and caused this seal of the city of Brawley to be fixed on the 3rd day of December 2019. Donald L. Wharton, our former mayor. This is like kind of my final photo op, so if I can get my family.
I doubt if it's his final photo.
Oh,
Yeah.
There you
Turn
go.
that around.
Stay out of the picture.
Thank you for that. If I get my family come, I'll just get one more photo op here. And Alma, if you could. We have one more.
I have doubts that
Honor.
this is his last photo.
These are real. From my wife Susie.
You want to sit out to the side. So we got photo bomb.
Congratulations, Mr. Hausman. You know, my father worked for Mr. Hausman's family for 50, including Mr. Hausman, for 53 years. So, you know, a great person to know. And in fact, I worked for his company as well growing up. So he's been a fantastic person to know, and we appreciate everything you've done for my family as well. Congratulations to you.
Thank you, George. Appreciate that.
Congratulations, Mr. Hausman. You took my mayorship away for one day.
Congratulations. Did
But it's okay. It's great.
you give him $50? Give him the
We're going to go ahead and move on to special presentations, and I'm not sure if anybody's here we do have somebody here for special presentation? Oh, yes, Stella.
Norma.
You want to come up?
You want to make your incoming mayor comments? All right. Yeah. And this should be.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. My name is Stella Jimenez. I'm the District Director for Assembly Member Eduardo Garcia, and it's an honor to be here, Donnie, to congratulate you for this year of success. You have driven the city to this past year to what it is today, and our office is very much looking forward to continuing to work with you in your new role, as well as Rosanna and our new mayor and our city council. With that, I'd like to present you with a certificate on behalf of our office, on behalf of Assemblymember Garcia, and it reads, "Your outstanding," presented to Donnie Wharton, in honor of your outstanding service as mayor for the city of Brawley, through your leadership over the years in city government and serving in numerous roles in the community. You have demonstrated admirable commitment to the people who reside within the city. Your dedication to civic engagement serves as an excellent example for all to follow. The state of California and the constituents of the 56th Assembly District honor your year of distinguished service to the city of Brawley and thank you for your enormous contributions. Congratulations and best wishes on your continued endeavor.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank
I'd like to also present you with a certificate on behalf of the office of Senator Ben Wessel. Presented to Donald Wharton in recognition for leading the city of Brawley to another year of growth through economic and community development. On behalf of the California State Legislature, I, Senator Ben Wessel, hereby commend and thank you for your service and dedication to the city of Brawley, County of Imperial, and State of California. Signed, Senator Ben Wessel.
Thank you.
And finally,
You have all three.
on behalf of our Congressman Juan Vargas, I would like to also present you with a certificate which reads, on behalf of the U.S. House of Representatives and the residents of the 51st Congressional District, I would like to commend you on your hard work and efforts towards improving the quality of life for the residents of the city of Brawley. Thank you for your leadership and invaluable service to the community. Signed, Congressman Juan Vargas. I wore 3 hats today.
Thank you so
Or
much.
3 hats today. You okay? Yeah, I remember seeing one in here.
My head's melting.
Can we talk loud?
Moving on, we're going to go ahead, one more token of appreciation that I'll be presenting to Donald Wharton, and that's on behalf of the city. And is this a nice pen set so that you can, I'm sure it's an expensive one, right, Rebecca?
Oh, yeah.
Use it and
Oh,
guard it with
yeah.
your life. And then also on behalf of the city, they put together all the articles and all the presentations and things that you've been involved in with the city of Brawley for the past year. Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Now we'll go ahead and move on to incoming mayor comments. I have a few things to share. I don't think, a lot of you have known me for a while, but a lot of you haven't, so I thought it's a good opportunity for me to share some of my history. But first of all, I do want to thank my fellow council members for giving me the honor of serving as mayor of our city of Brawley. Thank you so much. If it wasn't for you guys, I wouldn't be in this position, so I appreciate it very, very much from all of you. So I want to thank our prior mayor, Donnie Wharton, our outgoing mayor, for his leadership, his dedication, and his mentorship. He has been a great role model for me during the year as mayor pro tem. I also want to thank our other council members, George Nava, Sam Couchman, and Luke Hamby. They have all made themselves available to discuss city-related projects, issues, and concerns. I feel we have an excellent working relationship which serves well in making the best decisions for our city. We all have diverse backgrounds and each brings something different to our team. I also want to thank our hardworking staff, our city manager, Rosanna Moore, our city attorney, Bill Smurton, our city clerk, Alma Benavides, all of the department heads, and all the staff that are responsive to every need for information. They make our jobs easier every day. I also want to thank my family and friends. I especially want to thank my husband, Julio, who looks quite different today. He cleaned up. He usually runs around with a cap on, but I want to thank him for his patience, his understanding, and support. He has supported me from day one. I wouldn't have been able to run or do any of the things that I do if it wasn't for his support. He has to listen to me every day, either complaining or griping or even giving me some feedback and advice. But he continues to support me no matter how many meetings or events I have to attend, and that I kind of coerce him to attend with me many times. I want to also introduce my family that's here today. If you guys don't mind standing so that they know who you are. My oldest daughter, Melissa. My youngest daughter, Claudia. My older son, Anthony. And my daughter-in-law, his wife, Gina.
See, Anthony's got the parade wave down. You know?
Yeah, he does. I think he should have been the politician. And unfortunately, my other son, Jesse, was unable to be here tonight, but I do have my grandkids, quite a few of my grandkids here. And Jesse's children, Kelsey, Kayla, and I have my grandson, Gian, here also. Gian, who's going to be I don't know, karate, or what is he going to be doing, Bill? Oh, art. He's either going to do karate or art. I'm not sure.
One or the other.
I don't know about that. Karate is
So it was especially good for them to be here today. For Gian and my other grandson Jackson couldn't be here, but they're both studying civics right now in school. And so on the way home, when I pick them up, sometimes they talk to me about different things. it's really interesting to me now that kids that age actually share so much with their grandmother, because I don't remember doing that, but they share so much with me that I say, okay, try to give them advice. They're a little young for that, I thought, but the last time that I was driving them home, they were talking to me about civics, and they had the little org chart, and they had the mayor and everything, and so I shared that I was going to be becoming the mayor, so they were really excited about being here today. Aren't you, Gia? I also want to acknowledge my friends. Oh, I'm sorry, I can't miss my sister. I have to acknowledge my sister, Esther. She's sitting on the other side, so anyway, my older sister Esther is here, and also my Aunt Joby is here. Aunt Joby. And so I'm not going to name all my relatives because there's a lot of them here, but I do especially want to acknowledge their presence and thank them for being here today. And all of my friends and relatives that helped me from the very beginning with my campaign and have supported me through this whole 4 years. And they really wanted to be here today because they said they've been dying to see me become mayor. So here I am, finally. And so also, I kind of wanted to share with all of you today, somebody asked me the other day why I ran for office. And I thought about that, and I said, well, why did I run for office? And I kind of thought about my background. A lot of you know my background, and a lot of you don't, but just to share with you, I did grow up here in Brawley. I was born and raised in Brawley. I grew up at 958 K Street, where the whole family was raised. And that's about a block down from Miguel Hidalgo School, so that you can, kind of visualize where that is. I'm one of 7 children, and my mom became a widow at a very young age. So she still had the responsibility of 5 of us still at home when my father passed. Unfortunately, there's only 3 of us left now, my older sister Esther, which I'm really happy to have here today, and I have a younger brother, and myself. So during the course of my growing up, my mother, she was a very strict person, but maybe I thank her for that because I managed to graduate from Brawley Union High School in the top 20 of my class. So it was probably, maybe part of it largely due to her pushing me to make sure that I studied and didn't do too much extracurricular stuff. But at that time, I did graduate, and the plan was for me to attend UCSD. And I thought about this the other day because I ran into a former classmate, and who also did good in school, and he said, "Hey, Norma, what happened?" And I go, "What do you mean, what happened?" And he said, "How come you didn't end up in Berkeley or Stanford like I did?" And I said, "Well, life, sometimes life gets in the way, things happen." So I thought I'd share a little bit about that with you today. That was the goal, and that was where I was supposed to go. And sometimes people say things happen for a reason, and maybe they do happen for a reason. But at that time, I didn't have any marriage plans yet. But Julio, who is still my husband, got his draft notice. And he got a draft notice, and all of a sudden, my whole life changed. So between him and my mother, they encouraged me, and I do mean encouraged me. I mean they didn't let me out the door. To stay in Imperial Valley, to stay in Brawley. So I ended up instead attending Imperial Valley College. And you know what? There's nothing wrong with Imperial Valley College. It's a great college, so God bless them I stayed here, and it turned out to be good. No regrets. I have a beautiful family, and as I will share with you in a little bit, I had a very successful career in spite of not going to Berkeley or Stanford or UCSD. A few years after that, I was lucky enough to get a job with the state of California with the Employment Development Department. And at the time that I got that job, I didn't realize that was going to be my career. But I guess it was my calling, because I soon found myself very satisfied with serving the population that we were serving, which were the unemployed, the underemployed, and farm workers, veterans, low income, disabled. And I just felt it was a very fulfilling job for me to serve that population. So I stayed with that department. when I started my career with the Employment Development Department, I noticed that all of upper management were males, every single one of them. And at that time, I guess I didn't really think much about it because that was the norm at that time. But nonetheless, I seized the opportunity to advance within the department. And within a few years, I was in management. So much so that I didn't realize that when I became the general manager of the department in Imperial County, it turned out I was the first female to be the general manager for in the Employment Development Department in Imperial County. So that they brought that to my attention, and I thought, oh, I guess I broke the glass ceiling then, so to speak. So anyway, at the end of my career, I found myself with 35 years of service, 20-some years in management. So I was very, very thankful to the state of California for affording me the opportunity of the continuing education and experience that I received from the state. So after I retired in January of 2011, many of my friends and relatives came to me and said, were asking me, well, what are you going to do now? Why don't you run for office? And I really hadn't thought about it. Honestly, I had not. But it was them encouraging me because of the knowledge and experience. They felt that I was a good fit for serving the community in the political elected, as an elected official. So I accepted the challenge, and I've taken my responsibilities very seriously, dedicating and devoting whatever time is necessary to listen to our constituents' concerns, weighing differing opinions, and ultimately doing what we feel as a team, doing what we feel is the best for our community. And as Donnie indicated, this year has been a challenging one for the city. We've had our difficulties with finances, but we've also seen some great accomplishments, and we have some big, exciting projects that are coming up this year, which include housing and commercial development. And if you watch the news, you hear about all the issues throughout the state about affordable housing. And I think we need to really pat ourselves on the back that here in the city of Brawley, we are doing a good job in addressing this issue and pursuing funding for affordable housing in our community. I think it's really outstanding compared to other cities throughout the state. So in closing, I'd just like to say that I'm looking forward to working with all our council to face the challenges that we have and to continue to provide the necessary services to our community while remaining fiscally responsible. I do look forward to a very successful year for our city of Brawley. Thank you. Do we want to say we can take a little picture?
Yeah.
You want to give Lucas an opportunity to say something?
Okay, because they have to leave, so we're going to take a picture real quick.
Okay.
Do you want? Some of my family has to leave, so we're going to go ahead and just take a couple of minutes to take a few pictures, and then we'll offer opportunity for our other council members to make some comments and our mayor pro tem. I just know that they have an urgency to another commitment, so if it's okay with everybody, we'll just take a few quick pictures. Continue with our agenda, and I'd like to give the opportunity to our new Mayor Pro Tem, Luke Hamby, to make his comments.
Okay, thank you, Madam Mayor. It's going to take some time to get used to that, so if we mess it up, we all apologize. Thank you for the opportunity to say a few words. I'm grateful to the rest of the council for this experience this past 2 years. This past year especially has been difficult. Seems like every meeting there was some difficult issue to deal with. I'm glad it was Donnie Wharton that was mayor.
It's over. Yeah, it's good now.
To deal with all of that, and it has been an education, and it's been eye-opening. The finance process, to see just what we do with what we receive in revenues every year. It's not ideal, but I appreciate everyone tightening the belt and trying to make it through another fiscal year. We pray for more prosperous days ahead. I'm grateful for the opportunity to serve the city of Brawley in this capacity, and I hope that that this year will have a better outcome than the previous. And I'd like to congratulate the new mayor,
Thank you.
Norma Kastner-Haudegi, and thank you, Donnie, for the hard work that you did this past year. And grateful to George Nava and Sam Couchman for their collaboration over the past year. I'm grateful to my family, my wife Elizabeth, and my little boy Bennett, who is 3 years old and who has a hard time sitting through boring meetings.
Thank you.
I don't know.
I think this.
Yeah,
I
Sam
have
has the
this
same problem.
too boring.
I got to be honest, he probably gets it from me. I've never uttered this comment at home, but the other night he was taking a shower and playing, making whatever imaginary stories up, and I heard it one person say to the other person, "You ruined my council meeting."
Oh, okay.
I don't know where he got that from. I've never said that, but
You ruined my council.
it tells you what he knows all about what's going on in here, I guess. So I'd like to thank them for standing by me. It's a sacrifice for every family that has a council member up here. So thank you all, and that's all I have.
Okay. So we take a break?
Okay. Okay, we're going to go ahead and take a little break. Reception, we have some refreshments and dessert and some sandwiches for everyone's enjoyment.
I'm gonna make you get back to 56. You're not gonna be quiet.
Congratulations, Ron.
Oh, thank you, George. Is my story too long?
That was a gift with strings attached.
I think you knew part of it, right?
Congratulations. That was really nice there.
Okay, we're on item 4 on the agenda, scheduled public hearing. Item 4A, conduct public hearing for Brawley Mobile Home Park Zone Change, General Plan Amendment, ZC 1801, GPA 1801, 650 Brawley Avenue. And the backup is on pages 6 through 15. Yes.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, council members, Gordon Gast, Development Services Director. This is, I'm sure you're familiar with this topic, the zone change for the mobile home park, which is in the process of being cleaned up from a medium density residential mobile home park to a commercial use. The site plan you see there isn't the final site plan. This is kind of a conceptual right now. We still have to figure out, depending on what the market demands, what the actual site plan will look like in the future, and it'll still have to be reviewed and required to be upheld to all city standards. If you have any questions for me, Mr. Cameron Johnson from AMG is here, if you have any specific questions for him as a representative of the property.
Anybody have any questions or?
No, I thought it looked pretty good.
As a brief recap, this item was before the Planning Commission quite some time ago, and it was held in abeyance at the request of the new owner until all issues resolved with the prior residents. So we are very pleased to see that reach a conclusion. And today's public hearing will allow for the zone change and general plan amendment to move forward.
I think the public will be very pleased.
Yes.
I get asked about that every day, so.
Yeah, so it's important to open the public hearing and ask for public comment.
Okay.
Okay. We'd like, we're going to go ahead and open this for public hearing at this time. Does anyone have any comments?
Nope, doesn't look like it.
No comments, and we'll go ahead and close the public hearing. Thank you.
If the applicant would like to come forward with any comments, we're happy to receive them. If not, I think the council is prepared to consider potential action.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. My name is Cameron Johnson with AMG and Associates. We're the owner and developer of the property. It was, I feel like over a year ago that we were here before the Planning Commission to get the zone change. And to get back here, it's been a long, expensive, arduous process, but and honestly, there were times I doubted that we would get here, but I'm ecstatic that that's behind us, and now we can finally move forward. I know that the site has been in a state of disarray. There's been a lot of problems there, and I want you to know that we were in a position that we couldn't do anything about it. I mean, I wanted to clean it up many, many times. My hands were tied, so I anticipate that the final trailers will be removed. By this time next week, it should be fully cleaned. I've got a crew scheduled to go out there, and they're going to scrape the property, grade it, and just get it totally cleaned up, so we shouldn't have any more issues with vandals, vagrants, or anything like that. And then my plan is to see through with development. We would like to. I'm envisioning a neighborhood retail commercial center with an anchor, restaurant, pharmacy, grocery store, fast food restaurant, some small shop retail, banking. But that ultimately, there's a lot of rooftops in that area, and I think it would just be a great addition to that part of town if we could add some commercial services and amenities within walking distance. We're also the developer of the apartment project that's being built across the street, and I think it'll just be a welcome addition. Happy to answer any questions you guys have, but again, I'm very happy to be here today that we can move forward.
I think we're thrilled that it's finally almost cleaned up and that it's moved as far as it has. And I think we all feel kind of apologetic that we couldn't help you move it forward any sooner.
No, don't even worry
faster.
about it. Thank you, I appreciate that.
Very good.
Okay. Okay, we're going to go ahead and move on to adopting ordinance number 2019, ordinance of the City Council of the City of Brawley, California, amending the Brawley Municipal Code to change the zoning designation for specified properties.
Right. You need a motion, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
You need a motion to adopt ordinance number 2019. I make that motion.
I'll second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the motion carries. Thank you.
Okay, and
Now
the
we need-
second
do we-
item is a resolution for which action is also being sought.
Okay, item 2, adopt resolution number 2019, resolution of the City Council of the City of Brawley, California, an amendment to the City of Brawley General Plan on pages 18 and 19.
Make a motion to adopt the resolution.
I'll second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is a second public hearing, and this was kind of serendipitous in that the project that is the subject of this particular action is another property being developed by AMG. This project is referred to as the Ocotillo Springs Apartment Project, and it is a recipient of a multi-million-dollar award of funds from the state of California for its energy efficiency features, and it will also have the added benefit of bringing a number of really critical off-site improvements to the area in and around the project location and extending along East Main Street. So included in the backup on pages 20 through 37 is material related to the public hearing that must be conducted here this evening. This is going to allow for the creation of a mechanism for financing. And we do have representatives here today, both on behalf of the property as well as with the California Municipal Finance Authority. This topic is kind of a new one to the city of Brawley, so we did have our city attorney assist with review of all of the documents to help us better understand what obligations are associated with it and what types of opportunities.
So the way it works is, if the city elects to join the California Municipal Finance Authority, then our developers are eligible to participate in bond funding that agency sponsors, and that's the plan for this. The city would be a member of that. It's a JPA. Be a member of it, but the city does not have any obligation to pay on these bonds. It's the developers, and so it's very, very low risk for the city, unlike no risk for the city. It's all on the developer, and that look very straightforward. It's been in existence for a long time. It's a lot of cities are members, and it's a good opportunity for the developer to get financing that way.
Okay, any questions?
Is there a membership fee?
There is not, and actually, the city will have the opportunity to recover some of the administrative expenses associated with our review and participation. With us this evening is the financial advisor, Mr. Travis Cooper. I do want to give him an opportunity if he wishes to. Do you have any comments you'd like to share, Mr. Cooper?
Happy to answer any questions.
Okay, at this time, we'll go ahead and open for public hearing. Are there any comments? Okay, seeing none, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing. Thank you. Okay, so now I'm looking for motion.
Yes, correct.
We'll go ahead and I'm looking for a motion to adopt resolution of the City Council of the City of Brawley, California, approving the issuance of the bonds by the CMFA for benefit of Brawley Pacific Associates. Third, a California limited partnership, the borrower, a partnership of which Pacific West Communities, Inc., the developer, or a related person to the developer is a general partner, to provide for the financing of the project. Such adoption is solely for the purposes of satisfying the requirements of TEFRA, the code, and the California Government Code Section 6500 and following. The resolution will also authorize the mayor or designee thereof to execute the joint exercise of powers agreement with the CMFA. And the backup material is on pages 23 through 37. I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the motion carries. Thank you. Okay, the next item on the agenda is item 5, consent agenda. Our items are approved by one motion. Council members or members of the public may request consent items be considered separately at a time determined by the mayor.
Make a motion to approve the consent as written.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the motion passes. We'll go on to item 6, regular business. Discussion and potential action to adopt resolution number 2019, resolution of the City Council of the City of Brawley approving the overall budget for fiscal year 2019-2020. Backup material on pages 64 to 242. And I believe Rosanna will be covering that for us. Thank you.
And distributed to council members and available for the public are copies of both the updated budget memo as well as the PowerPoint slides for this evening's presentation. So this evening, we have the presentation of our overall budget. And as council's well acquainted with the process, we have well over a dozen funds that are a part of city revenues and expenditures on an annual basis. But that which we oftentimes focus most extensively on is the general fund, because it really is the discretionary pot of revenues that the council has the ability to assign resources from to a variety of citywide services that are other than enterprise supported. So as this process has made its way to today, we have established what I would describe as collective values and goals. We believe what is presented before you today is an example of fiscal prudence. We are looking to be determined to tighten our belts and reach the finish line June 30 in the black. Quite a few meetings and public discussions have occurred that have gotten us to where we are today. They began as early as February of 2018 and carried us through, 2019, and carried us through to where we are this evening, December 3rd, with potential adoption. So a number of streamlining and restructuring options have been considered. The areas that were identified, that are identified in the slide, are really indicative of what the general fund supports from a resource point of view. We took a look at how admin was structured and departments that have the room to be leaned if there's more than one person. Unfortunately, we have in recent years leaned ourselves to a point of single department capabilities. And so on the admin front, early on as financial constraints required us to trim budgets, we reduced a lot of that overhead, even in this very building. 8 years ago, had many more bodies occupying this admin office, and today we're down to a city clerk's office of 2 and a single city manager staff, as well as a single personnel and risk management administrator. We also have departments that have been combined, and as you may recall, the city looked at opportunities to join disciplines when we experienced a retirement of our building official. And at that time, we merged 2 departments, which were community development services at the time, which included building, housing rehabilitation, and code enforcement, and our planning division. So now we have a single department head that heads the development services department, and we took a closer look at building and code enforcement specifically. Building was anticipated to experience a retirement, which will take place before the end of this calendar year. And code enforcement, prior fiscal years, there's been a great deal of need and focus on accomplishing greater code enforcement, but because of concern for the long-term commitment associated with permanent staffing, temporary staffing was established in its place. And so we took a closer look at code enforcement and development services to determine whether or not we could afford to continue to temporarily staff. We also looked at public safety, and as council's well acquainted with the opening of the fire station number 2, we developed a 50% staffing plan. Not 100%, but a 50%. And our goal was to grow slow and steady and acquire the personnel needed to at least 50% staff with permanent bodies. We took a look very closely at the manner in which fire is currently staffed. We have in the second year of looking very, very closely in this area, where we're proposing a couple of changes on that front that will still maintain minimum staffing but reduce permanent assignments. On the police front, you will see in the department breakdowns that we are aiming to take advantage of a number of vacancies among sworn officers, as well as freeze a vacant commander position. And then the third area identified under public safety is graffiti abatement. Very similar to code enforcement in that this was an area of service and need that was very clearly visible in the community. There was a chance to work proactively to address rapidly graffiti abatement, but because there was uncertainty about the ability long-term to permanently staff, that has maintained a temporary configuration for many years at this point. So we took a closer look again at that temporary staffing. At the library, we have had some advertised openings. We took a very close look at whether we could reduce staffing positions there, and did actually propose the elimination of a page position and also a reduction of hours. And in Parks and Recreation, and I think it's important to note, the reason Parks and Recreation is listed with so many subcategories is because Parks and Rec encompasses many different properties throughout the city and has many, many important functions that we attribute to quality of life. So we took a look at park maintenance, pool operations, the senior center, the teen center, and leagues. And one of the areas that we have trimmed very, very extensively in recent years is looking at how we could keep keep the highest possible service level for year-round services throughout our community, how we could do them, we could provide them in the most cost-effective way. And one of the ways that we have accomplished that is through temporary staffing. No different from the other departments that have been referenced when a position need was identified. Instead of casting it as a permanent role, because of concern from for the ability to long-term commit to the employment arrangement, temporary staffing was identified. So in the beginning, we looked very closely at park maintenance, and I do want to take a moment to just kind of flesh out for the council's benefit and the community's benefit that one of the real challenges that we've had in park maintenance is that we've got a great deal of acreage associated with our city properties. We are extremely lean staffed in this area and have backfilled permanent roles when they were vacated by permanent staff with temporary staff in its place. The number of bodies that perform basic mowing and maintenance of those facilities, it is extremely challenging to maintain mowed properties with fewer bodies than those who we currently have in place. And so while the last presentation of this body assumed a reduction of all temporary staffing in Parks and Recreation, some alternatives to that scenario did develop from the ad hoc committee input received. And so I'll go into some more detail about that along the way. And then we also took a look through the ad hoc committee at the budget assigned to City Council. There isn't a very large number assigned, but it was important to the ad hoc committee to make a gesture in the direction of showing the belt tightening throughout the organization. And so some cuts have also been considered on that front. So as noted at the beginning of the presentation, our general fund, although there's a dozen funds, the general fund is the one that really consumes the majority of discussion time because it is the flexible fund that has so many calls for its use and desires for service levels that it's oversubscribed as a fund. And so what we've done along the way as we've prepared this budget is tried to align revenues and expenditures. And I'm sure council doesn't need to be reminded, but we do have some members of the community here today that haven't maybe had the chance to get fully updated. Year after year, in our quest to offer the highest level of service possible to the community that best meets the demands, even though the demands clearly exceed the resources, we have been using reserves in order to offset revenues that don't match expenditures. And due to that and a number of other unanticipated expenses, which are fully detailed in the budget memo, we've basically reduced our general fund reserve. So this method of using the reserve to keep service levels high, that opportunity is no longer available to us. And so we looked at some ways that we might be able to reduce costs, recognizing that 80% of the city's budget is personnel. And so even if you trim other line items, it's not enough to capture the savings necessary to align with revenues. So when cuts are considered, it's almost always going to be staff because of 80% of the budget being comprised of personnel-related expenses. And based on the way we have developed the organizational chart over time with very high service levels and quite a few temporary staffing arrangements, every time the number of staff are reduced, it translates to a significant service level change. And so our job has been, and our task has been to try to better understand among all the services offered, how can we still maintain the highest level of service possible and live within our financial means, knowing that the reserve is severely depleted. At the last council meeting, we provided an update and wanted to kind of do a temperature check with the council to be sure that we were on a path that I know no one's excited about. No one wants to see services reduced. No one wants to see the number of personnel reduced. But it's extremely important, seeing as how the reserves are depleting, that we get on a path for sustainability. And so the council was kind enough to take on the charge of naming an ad hoc committee to review in a lot more detail the last proposal that came before you, which had some extreme and draconian cuts. And so based on the feedback we've received, we have an update to provide to you that is captured in the budget that's presented to you this evening for action. After going through the entire exercise, I think the key number to hone in on is $421,116. That basically is the gap after all things considered, all input received from our ad hoc committee. We still have this gap. And the appetite for further cuts is, I think, very, very limited. And at the council meeting that was last held, there was a proposal advanced that considered the potential of using interest accrued on highway relinquishment funds as a method to bridge the gap. And so I'm going to talk through a little bit of what that offers you as some options. Okay, so first I will recap the proposed staffing changes. We are proposing in the budget for adoption this evening, freezing the 50% staffing plan for Fire Station Number 2 for the 4th year in a row. We are also proposing to designate an interim fire captain role. And just as a reminder, we recently honored our retiring fire captain, Roger Smith. That created a vacancy in our organization for a promotion. And what is proposed as a part of this strategy is that we go through a recruitment and selection process, and whoever that successful candidate is, that individual be designated an interim fire captain, seeing as how we've got approximately 6 months remaining in the fiscal year and many key topics to consider in the next budget process. It is also proposed that the freezing of 5 vacant sworn officer positions be taken advantage of, as well as a currently vacant commander position. This next bullet, number 4, has to do with graffiti abatement. At the last city council meeting, there was a discussion of elimination of the temporary staffing of this role at 100%. After meeting with the ad hoc committee, receiving general comments from the council, what we did was amend the approach to, instead of reducing it to 0, reducing it by half to 20 hours a week for graffiti abatement staffing. We have also proposed in the development services arena to take advantage of an anticipated building inspector retirement, which will happen before the end of this calendar year. So we're proposing to freeze that, as well as the fire marshal position that was vacated in recent times that we have not been able to restore. And then last but not least, we are proposing to eliminate temporary staffing for that supports the senior center, the teen center, code enforcement, the part-time janitor that services the admin office, and the part-time role also shared with the police department for maintenance activities. We are also proposing in this budget to temporarily suspend voluntary contributions. These amounted to $20,000 this fiscal year, and prior year contributions, last fiscal year was $5,000 for IVEDC, $5,000 for the Film Commission, and $10,000 for the Brawley Chamber of Commerce. So as described, we have this gap. Inside that target was the number $421,116. And what I want to do is maybe frame up how that number relates to the general fund reserve preservation policy that is in place. So based on the budget that's been prepared for action, if policy, voluntarily established policy were followed, a 15% set aside would require $2.3 million in the general fund reserve. If we were to use the existing reserve for the gap of $421,116, all that we would have as part of our balance is 2% relative to the 15% requirement, and what amounts to $309,992. If instead of using the reserve, the city opted to use relinquishment fund interest accrued to address the gap of 421,116, the balance in the general fund reserve would represent 4.7% or $731,107 at the close of June 30, 2020. So I do want to note that we are working with a set of assumptions for what we're anticipating and estimating San Gabriel-related settlement figures to be. It is quite possible that we are off by about 100,000. So should the council wish to go the option of using general fund reserve funds and not the interest accrued, then that value of reserve is anticipated to be well below $310,000. And we hope to be reporting out in public what those final figures are in the very near future. We've made substantial progress on that front. Okay. So the next series of slides include an extensive list of capital projects. If the council would like me to go through these, I can. I think highest level, it's important to note that the general fund being as distressed as it is, there's only one capital project that taps the general fund for one-time monies, and it has to do with our console upgrade that is in the dispatch center. The PD portion of that work, we're using special funds that are eligible for use, but those special funds cannot be used for fire-related activity. So the fire-related activity amounts to $23,212, and that portion is going to be carried by the general fund this fiscal year. Included in the memo is a list of all of these projects. If anybody's ever wondering why it takes some time to get new projects processed through Public Works, I think you can gain a really great appreciation for the volume of work that's being carried out by the Public Works Department. Nearly every one of these projects from a procurement or implementation point of view is managed by that department. The projects generally span streets, water, sewer, and a number of facility-related improvements and equipment purchases. So those are here in detail. I won't go through all of them. They should all be very familiar to you. And some of them are actually substantially complete, given that we have nearly made our way through the midpoint of the fiscal year. That's a part of this budget process. So again, these are listed and comprise an extensive list of projects. Okay. So the item that is before you tonight for potential action includes adoption of the fiscal year 1920 budget. The council typically approves adoption via a city council resolution. You'll see in the backup that the resolution also calls out whether funds, if your wish is to use funds associated with interest earnings from the relinquishment of state highway. So we'll need to have the approval for an exception to our city adopted policy and also lay out the method for which the gap is going to be addressed. And both Tyler Salcido and I are here to address any questions that you might have about more detailed work. Perhaps the ad hoc committee may wish to weigh in on what process they undertook.
Well, I think from the viewpoint of the ad hoc committee, it's a very difficult thing when you're dealing with a budget that shifts and moves, and it's a living document. It's a very difficult proposition. We've had a lot of feedback. Well, I've had some feedback from the public about certain projects they would like to see move forward. We understand where we're at in terms of budget. We understand what it takes to balance the budget. We did include some things back into the budget that were not there before. So we did put some things back in there. And we also had a lengthy discussion about the fact that we're going to have to revisit this budget throughout the next 6 months, and then into the new year may be a different picture, or at least a slightly different picture, because of some of the things that are one-time costs that are occurring for us right now, or maybe within the next 6-month period. So there's got to be a lot of discussion from the council and leadership from the council as to what we want to look at in terms of exceptions to this budget, or what we want to look at where we have to really maybe pull money out of the reserve, if we have any reserve, or if we have other funding that's available. So we had a lengthy discussion on that, but we also said that we experienced some cuts because of the payment in lieu. So the council members, as you know, will be losing some funding for individual council members. But we also felt like we should cut our budget a certain amount of money because of that. So we did cut a little bit off. I think it was 30,000?
We cut everybody's travel budget in half, from 3,000 to 1,500 each.
Right.
And out of special events, we took another $1,000 off and reduced that to 1,500 for the year.
Right.
And then I don't have the offhand the cash in lieu calculation.
Right,
part
there
of
was a
that.
calculation there. It is some money out of our budget, and so I think it's important that we realize that we are taking the cuts from the council, and I wanted the council to be aware of that. That was something that the ad hoc committee felt strongly about, that we needed to take some action in that area. I think, though, I've been approached by the public on a couple of different things. One is like some of the sporting events that we normally fund. There's some talk out there that the community would like to come together, possibly raise some funding, get some sponsors, do some support for that, and then we would revisit that topic. And it may mean that we are going to spend a little bit of money for that, but it also may mean that we won't have to spend very much. And so I think that's important, that we look at each of those, and as individuals want to come forward and volunteer and do certain things, that might be possible for that. I'm concerned a little bit. The only concern that I really have on what we've decided on right now is the senior citizen thing, based upon what we're hearing tonight and what we've heard throughout the course of the last week or two with the Senior Citizen Center. And I know that we do pay the coordinator, I think it's a full-time, she's a full-time position. I don't know that we don't want to look at that a little bit, and maybe we want to see if it's possible to do something with a half-time position, if it's possible to do something with a limited hour position a couple of days out of the week or something like that. And I think that's something that I would like to look at, simply because I hate weaning them entirely off of that. I know they're going to get the nutritional. We know that's still there. They're going to get certain other projects that are funded by other funding sources. But that overall thing that they talked about with the seniors coming together in more of a social setting, I think that's important for their health. And I do think that if there's any way that we can do something there, that would be a priority for me that I would have to look at. Now, I don't know if that's possible, and so if we do adopt this budget, I think we all have to kind of, well, it seems to me that we each individually and all of us as collective have to look at that and look at each of those little things that come up and see where we want to go with that. And so that's my interpretation. I know Donnie may have some other input.
Yes, Mayor, if I can just adding, I mean, that was, I think, a pretty thorough synopsis. I think also we did a couple of sessions. We actually spent several hours going in I think pretty good detail. So, again, we keep prefacing, none of this is, an exercise that's obviously, it's a very tough exercise to go through. But having said that, the only thing I want to caution maybe the council is I think we arrived at a spot where if we can adopt and move forward under the caveat, which is always the understanding anyways, if there is a budget exception on a particular program or a particular activity, now we're isolated to that activity. There may be solutions, just as you mentioned, Sam, that may come forward. Makes it much easier for council as a whole to work on that, deal with that, as well as staff. And I'm not suggesting that maybe there'll be dozens and dozens, but certainly this is a living document. You can already see from one of the slides we're diving right into the next budget season. And the reminder here, that was a reminder to us as the ad hoc committee, is this is a 6-month budget, and we're going right into what will be more of an annual budget. So these, when you spread this out and annualize it over 12 months, it is obviously going to look different. You're working with twice the revenue. We're looking at slightly different assumptions, and those assumptions, Sam, as you mentioned, might be a little bit different, probably not drastically different, but I feel confident we can move forward with this. And the comment about senior center, if there's a model, it's just not before us right now for this budget adoption. I think this council and staff would be, we're wide open to what, that might be, right? I think one of the discussions we had about that specifically was the center continues to be utilized, continues to serve that very important segment of our, population in a capacity. It's not like if the doors were locked and it was closed and there was nothing going on there, that'd be one thing. But I think there's still that, and then it allows us as a council some time to proceed forward and figure out how to get this back to what we would really more desire. So anyways, I just want to know, at least share with the public the rationale. This wasn't just, okay, check, that's, off the list. Not that anyone made that decision. It's just we are working across the board with every department, as this has been shared time and time again now through this whole budget process. None of this is easy per se, but I think we arrived at a spot where we have a method to adopt and move forward, and then get right to work on the next budget. I mean, that's really what's going to happen here within the next.
And I think we did restore some parks funding that I think was vital for the parks to continue. We have a large number of parks that are utilized by a large number of people. I think that's an important service that we do provide, and we have to be able to do that. And I think that's an important thing in this. The other thing I think the public needs to be aware of is we're not utilizing the relinquishment funds per se for this budget. We're utilizing the interest from the relinquishment funds, which is a different animal, and we'll talk about that now. In the future, I don't know what the future is going to bring, and we'll see as that happens as we move along with this new one-year budget. But for now, I think everybody needs to be aware that we are utilizing funds. And also, in terms of the reserve, I think we're going to have some reserve money, but it's going to be very, very limited. And so we need to be aware of that. And we always have emergencies to develop, and we always have things that we have to pull from the reserve fund. So everybody needs to be aware of that throughout the course of the year, we've been spending some of the reserves for emergency basis. Things happen. I mean, now sometimes we're not able to accomplish that with any other source of funding, and we have to use the general fund reserve. We don't like doing that. I think it's interesting to note from your slide that if I'm not sure that I'm clear on the San Gabriel versus Flores. Is that, if that comes up, then that utilizes most of our reserve, right? So that's where the tricky part is, or it doesn't?
So the last budget presentation that was made,
right,
2 weeks ago, we presented the assumptions, which represented the 3-year look-back period with no liquidated damages and no legal fees.
Right.
So without compromising discussions that are currently protected, what I can share with you is that it's reasonable to imagine that a dollar value beyond the simple 3-year look-back is likely to be the final number. There will be legal fees that the other parties seek to recover, and there will also be liquidated damages on top of the back wages that are sought.
Okay. And will that occur out of this 6-month
Yes,
reserve
it will.
issue? It will recur.
It will
here
deplete
and not
the
into the
309
following.
further.
It would
Correct.
deplete the 309 further if we, no matter what we do.
We have every hope and expectation that we will achieve a settlement this fiscal year, and that the costs will be incurred this fiscal year.
And right now, it's at 731,000. Is that what
No,
we're?
it's at
It's
309.
at
The 309 figure.
Okay.
If you use the interest accrued,
Yes.
you're basically going to take reserve and pay the gap.
Right, absolutely. Yes.
Therefore, if you don't use interest, you're going to have an elevated general fund reserve balance. If you do use the interest, you have a higher reserve.
Yes.
If you don't use the interest, it is depleted to the 309.
Okay. So that's
Sorry
what it is.
for making
Okay,
that confusing.
But I still say if it's depleted to the 309, then we have more in reserve than 309 right at the present time. We only have 309?
309 is ending 6/30/2020.
Right, okay, okay. Now, so, I think that's where Norma and I are having some, we talked a little bit about
No,
this.
we talked about it, so I think he's trying to just make sure that we.
That I
we're all in
understand
complete
what
understanding
the
of-
usage of the 421,000 versus the non-usage of the 421,000. You know,
The usage of filling that gap
Yes.
with interest earnings
yes.
elevates your general fund reserve beyond the 309 to
Right.
the figure
The
that.
To the 731,
Yes,
right, I
exactly.
got that,
You're
okay.
using one or the other.
Yeah, you're using one or the other, it doesn't, it's, yeah, it's
No matter what we
whatever
do,
we
we're
do.
in
We've got to
not in
use
good
that.
We still
We've
don't
gotta
have very
use
much
that money.
reserve.
So if you do use the reserve, you're depleted to the 2% level of the 15 benchmark.
Correct.
If you do it the other way, then you're at 4.73 of the 15% benchmark.
15% benchmark, I got that, okay. But does that include whatever's going to come out for the San Gabriel, though, decision?
It
No, it does
includes
not.
only the back wages for 3 years,
And
not
any of the
liquidated
legal cost
damages
or
and not
liquid.
legal fees.
Gotcha, okay,
And do
now,
we have, I'm sorry, do we have an estimate on that, or is there any way to know?
It is not something that we can discuss in open
Oh,
session
I
at
see.
this time.
Okay. I got it.
okay, so I think we're clear on that then. Okay.
Can you
All right.
recap the total interest earnings in that account for the relinquishment fund?
Since 27, let's see, July 1st, 2012 to now it's approximately $450,000, I'm sorry, $450,000 of interest earned. And I've made this comment last time is in the total highway relinquishment funds, some monies have been spent and are being spent.
Yeah.
So the balance as of today is $8,020,000 in highway relinquishment. So
Including the interest or not including?
yes, including the interest. So if council so chooses and we move that 421 out of there, we're going to reduce that 8 million by 421.
Okay.
I think that's important.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then we would be, okay. But we're not going to use all the interest because it's 450,000. We'd be using 421.
And it continues to earn interest too.
Right, and it continues to earn interest.
Remember, it's a pooled account.
Yes.
All the funds are pooled, and there's an interest allocation on the funds. And
So
it's-
that's
it's a
how, yeah, okay,
calculation.
so it's not specifically on
Yes.
that, it's a pooled
Yes.
amount, okay. Okay,
I do
gotcha.
want to also note, based on the comments that were shared, a couple of other tidbits of info that might be useful to you. So having received feedback on the senior center, we went through the exercise of trying to determine what would be necessary to restore it. A dollar value of approximately 20,000 was noted, and that would increase the proposed budget gap to approximately 441, excuse me.
441.
441.
And the
441.
20,000, that's for the 6-month period?
Correct.
Correct.
So that's half, 40,000 would be the full amount for a full year.
There
For the-
were
for
a
the-
number of cuts that were proposed in the senior center cost center. They're not all temporary staffing related. It's
Okay.
other supplies and materials tied to senior center operation, et cetera. Wanted to also note that because there was great concern with the service level consequences of reduced temporary full-time staffing in parks maintenance. So you might recall that there was a reference to mowing every 3 weeks instead of on a shorter turnaround. That was thought to be an intolerable set of circumstances that we're not prepared to adjust service levels to. So the temporary staffing on those teams for 2 full-time permanents was restored. That's not everybody.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
only
that's
2.
a half-time out, that's one half-time out. And-
Correct.
And so we did restore 2 for the parks because we
Correct.
felt that needed to be done.
The mowing and labor-intensive
between
work
the
was
community.
not possible to
Correct.
accomplish in that type of a turnaround otherwise.
And I think also we restored another position there, correct?
The Parks and Rec Admin Secretary, which is also a full-time temporary staffing, was proposed for elimination. And this was really about the balance of how do we reduce the number of public safety, because it's a balance reduced staffing. So Parks and Recreation admin staffing was reduced by 1 temporary full-time. And as a result of that, we eliminated any regular staffing hours at the Lions Center property, because we now would only have 1 office-based staff member, which is the recreation coordinator. Otherwise, there would be no other regular presence within the building. So that was thought to be a unacceptable change in service level, and the admin secretary role was restored.
Correct. Can you refresh my memory on the part-time janitor and maintenance person, what that cost was on a yearly basis, please?
Sure. The part-time person is split between admin office and the PD. That role is approximately 20 hours per week. And do you have the total value?
So you could just double this figure. For the remaining 6 months, I have 14,602, which is including the payroll taxes and what have you for that position for the remainder 6 months. Yeah, 14,602.
Thank you.
Any other comments? Do you have any?
I don't think so.
Is there anyone in the public that has any questions related to this topic, would like to come up and?
I still have a question.
Okay.
With respect to the graffiti abatement position being reduced to 20 hours per week, there is no assurance that, our gentleman who we have here will remain. What would be the cost savings for that? Would it be similar to the part-time?
About $8,100, because it wasn't being reduced basically in half of the half.
I see.
Does that make sense?
Yes. For the 6-month period?
Correct.
Anything else, George?
No.
Okay. Anyone in the public? Okay, I had a question in regards to the senior center. If we follow the recommendation and eliminate the temporary position at the senior center, is there a possibility of another option of maybe other staff being available to cover for this 6 months while we're trying to figure out? Was that considered or not?
It was considered, but there are no excess. So the way the Parks and Recreation Department is staffed is permanent. The permanent roles are Parks and Rec coordinators, so 2, a Parks coordinator, a Rec coordinator, permanently staffed. We have 2 leadmen. One is tied to the Lions Center pool. One is tied to park operations. And then we have the crew that's a blend of permanent and temporary maintenance workers. So there's no other office personnel whose sole purpose is to occupy a building. Everybody else is physically engaged in the maintenance activities associated with city properties. So there's nobody to assign to work out of a physical location, because there's no other. The admin secretary needs to stay at Parks and Rec, so that together the Lions Center is staffed with 2 bodies at any one time for safety reasons.
And what was the savings on that one?
So to restore the senior center coordinator position and use of the building is estimated at $20,000.
Is that for 6 months?
Correct.
So in essence, the building, that half of the building would be closed.
Correct, although services would continue within the property. And that is, at least at this point, a better arrangement than what is occurring at some of our other facilities proposed for closing with no services.
And that would be the teen center, right?
Correct.
Teen center, and what else would be proposed for closing?
Teen Center is proposed for closing and very reduced pool-related services.
Yeah, that's, we're gonna, not heat. But that would be close.
So kind of looking far more closely at the cost associated with lifeguard staffing and pool heating. And reduced maintenance, because now the second party that used to be combined with the lead person is no longer staffed.
Yes.
So the regular work of having pool readiness will be reduced in terms of manpower.
Okay. So, by eliminating the senior center position, by eliminating the part-time janitor position and reducing the graffiti abatement position, that would result in a savings of approximately 42.5, 42.6, something like that. Okay. And so I guess my point of view is, I understand the need for cuts. I certainly understand that. I know we've made sacrifices and you know, for example, the volunteer contributions, that's savings of $20,000 right there. Then there's reductions within city council budgets, and that's maybe $6,000 there, or more.
85 plus the cash in.
Yeah, so yeah, plus, right? And so there's savings in that. Is there any way to preserve these positions? I realize there will be expense, but to preserve them and maybe eliminate some of the time that's being worked, not to maybe fully part-time, but, you know, to where they still remain employed and they're still providing a service and still there is some savings. I realize that we'd have to dip into to our funds in order to sustain that, but I think they're positions that I think they're very important.
And when you pose that question, do you mean specific to the senior center or?
The three positions, the graffiti abatement, the senior center position that is being considered for elimination, and the part-time janitor and maintenance person.
Okay, so graffiti abatement was previously proposed for elimination. Now it's reintroduced as 20 hours per week.
Right.
So your request on that front is how do we raise it from 20 to 40 or keeping it at 20?
No, how to raise it to something between that,
Okay.
right? To where it still makes sense for somebody to remain here, right? But it's not eliminating the position entirely. So that's
Gotcha.
and that's really the same statement I would have for the other positions. I realize there's money involved and we're trying to save as much money, but I think those positions they're positions that are, you know, obviously needed. I mean, we do have a popular senior center, and you know, people do use the services there. I know that, you know, obviously the graffiti abatement has been very productive in the city, and there's a lot less of it, and it's addressed very frequently, so that's important. And then, of course, keeping our administrative building clean. This ends up being a public restroom for many people, and obviously security concerns as well. So just those are things that I want to share with the rest of the group. I realize there's cost involved, and we're trying to eliminate cost, but it's just something for consideration.
If I could have Marjo walk through, I think she has a scenario for senior center coordinator services that are less than what is currently proposed in the budget, but could be more service than total elimination.
Okay.
Okay.
Let's hear from her.
I want to hear all options. So
Yes.
Yes, good evening. Excuse me, a little background on what happens on the food side. The building is opened up at 9 a.m. It would need to be done, if the whole program is eliminated, it would still need to be opened up at 9 a.m. by a park maintenance worker. And at 1 o'clock, somebody would need to come and lock up the building after the Catholic services are through with their side, and they have a contract and they pay rent, by the way.
Sure. Mhm.
Okay. What we've looked at is if we had no services on, I'm going to call it the city side and the food side,
Sure,
if that
that-
helps.
that
Oh,
helps.
That helps me.
It does. It helps.
Okay, so on the city side, if we had no services until 1, we could have a person there maybe from 1 to 3 to cover the majority of the activities that the seniors like with the companionship. The bingo, they do sewing, they do crocheting, they have jewelry making, they have all kinds of really cool activities, and most of them are from 1 to 3 already. So if we had somebody part-time for that, it would cost around $9,000 to $10,000 for somebody for the 2 hours a day. And one of the other things that we did is, because that half of the building was going to be closed, I also reduced toilet paper and other supplies that would be needed for that side. So that's where the $9,000 to $10,000 cost would be, to have somebody for 2 hours a day. The other thing is that we have a person who's called a rover, and that's the person who in the evening unlocks the gates and turns on the lights for events, and then comes back at 10 o'clock at night and reverses what they do, where they turn everything off and lock everything back up. If what that person does is split with 2 people, then we could potentially have services from 1 to 3, and the rover position and all the hours divided, but it would still add about $9,000 to $10,000 to be able to cover that. One of the other things that we're looking at is potentially to cut the rover hours down a little bit. If we have one of the park maintenance staff, probably a temp, work from 2 to 10, or what would it be, 1:30 to 10, so they could eat, then they could take care of opening and closing. Or if somebody had 9 to 6, they could at least open the restrooms and turn the lights on and things. So one of the things that we've been considering is how we can free up 10,000 or whatever to at least offer some services to the seniors.
So
we're
appreciate
looking
the
at that.
exercise, thank you.
Sure.
But I do think that there's just too many variables in that. I mean, it's just like if this person's here, or if it's not, or if somebody calls in sick, and then there's just too many things that could, create that not to work. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you, George. Any other comments on that?
Well, I guess that's a
subject?
variable anyway with the one senior center coordinator. When she's out, I'm sure they have to pick up the slack in some fashion. Is that not correct?
And at times, the secretary's gone over, which leaves one person in the office, and the front counter is not the safest, even though it has glass or whatever. I might be able to go over for the 2 hours. I mean, it's just, we're so limited in staff that being able to do those kinds of things is rough, because we don't have what I would call an extra floater person, which is somebody that can fill in for 2 to 4 hours at a time for different things.
I have a question. You talked about that most of the activity is in that time frame from 1 to 3.
Right.
From 1 to 3. So those, it sounds like those are committed to some agencies already. So
Those aren't. Those are programs that are actually just run by the senior center coordinator. The 2 programs we have right now are the meals, and then we also have a contract with Imperial Valley College during their semester. And actually, that can still be done on the other side, because it's at, I think, 9 or 10 in the morning, and it's an exercise and nutrition class, and it can be done on the food side at the same time. So those are the commitments that we have from outside agencies. The other things that happened are usually run by the senior center coordinator.
Like the get-together club, the senior
Right.
get-together club.
Yeah,
they're there typically early.
They're there in the
Right,
morning,
and
so
they
what would
usually,
they do?
most of the people stay on the food side, and the door will need to be opened at 9 and closed at 1.
My concern was about that particular club, because they do have a lot of activities for the seniors, and they plan different things, and they're the ones that have been most vocal about the closure that we're here today. So did you have any ideas for?
If they're on the other side.
But they would have to go to they would have to go to the.
And then it would open up at 1, right? 1 to 3 or something.
Yeah, if the city opened from 1 to 3 on the other side, that would leave that open. But currently, a lot of the dancing and singing is on the food side because there's a little stage, and sometimes they'll have somebody who'll come in and play the guitar, or they have a DJ who comes in, but it's usually most of the activity is stopped by 1 o'clock, but a lot of the activities are done during the Catholic Charities time. But our coordinator has been the one that's been there and kind of schedules it and works with Catholic Charities to make sure everybody is comfortable with all the things that are going on.
So this proposal is for the coordinator to work 2 hours a day?
Right.
10 hours a week. Okay.
For the full year, it would cost us
Between 9 and 10,000.
for the full year, not the 6
Well,
months.
no, for the January 1st to June 30th.
Okay, so 6
Yeah.
months, 6 months.
The-
I think, what I'm hearing are so small.
Yeah, scheduling things for 6 months is its own challenges, you're very aware.
Okay.
Yeah, I would-
Did you have?
A little balance of it.
I think if we've got approximately $450,000 in interest that we're talking about using to close the gap, I think it would be helpful to allot all of that so that we can keep some of these services, like closer to what the hours that the graffiti abatement has been working, and have some bit of services at the senior center in addition to the Catholic Charities. So if we bump up against that $450,000, we've got it. We're already talking about tapping into it, and we're talking about a 6-month period here. Some of this stuff that we're proposing may not work, but we'll know after 6 months if it's going to work or not. So I would say, let's go ahead and use the full $450,000 if that's what we've got, and try to reincorporate some of the things that are being cut here, the janitorial service and the graffiti abatement and the senior center, to whatever ability we can with the extra $28,900.
And there's nothing against using even a portion of the reserves. I mean, we're at the point
Right.
now. It's not like we're talking at that point about
10, 20
$10,000, $15,000.
Not very much,
You know,
right.
it's not a massive amount of money. And look in 6 months to see where we're at, because some of these things may be much better than expected. And if it's worse, I mean, quite frankly, if we're at this point now and we're making a decision that's, about cutting toilet paper, I mean, we've got some real problems, you know what I mean? So it's, I just think that it's worth considering keeping these items on board just because they have a very dramatic impact on the community. That's me.
I kind of wanted to echo that because I really feel that we need to maintain, if we can maintain what we have now at the senior center, we could at least attempt to have some hours there. And I mean, personally, I would like to see it at least half-time position, but if we can't do that, then I guess that 2 hours a day is more than what we would do if we eliminated the position altogether.
Or make it certain days.
Yeah,
You know?
we could do that also. But
That's
the other
true,
thing with the
every other day is
janitor,
not
I
better.
think we voiced
4
some
hours,
concerns
every
at our
other day.
last meeting, and I really do have a concern about not having a janitor on site or to do the cleaning, because I do know that the public uses a post office, and if they want to use the restroom, they tell them they don't have one available to come over here. So they come to use this restroom. The PD, I believe, does the same thing. If somebody wants to use the restroom, they'll come in here. So, I mean, you have public walking in here, and it's two issues: the sanitation, the cleanliness, and the safety of the employees. Because you don't know who's coming from the post office to use the restroom in here when we'll usually have maybe 2 employees here. But I have those concerns. I think there's a need to maintain that janitorial service. Maybe, I mean, he's already 20 hours a week. I don't know how much we could cut.
I might just, on behalf of that ad hoc committee, and dive in, not just on that one, but everything that's being said, all have been discussed, and again, they're all, obviously, everything has merit. So the only thing I'd say on the sanitation, it's more, it's the budgeting and the number. I think we arrived in a place where we were comfortable with the plan moving forward to still address those issues. So I think we were confident that that between PD and obviously the admin building to sanitation would be addressed. The other thing that I'd bring up also, and the city, the ability as we move forward, and just the same discussion that we're having, work in progress, that is always something that certainly could be add back in. So I think in this exercise here, so we can maybe move forward with an adoption, just with the added, sort of insight that we had as ad hoc, I think the one that is probably the most compelling, we had this discussion, is some iteration that we can move forward with, as we talked about with the senior center. And I think outside of that, adding back in or suggesting, I think graffiti abatement, I will say I walked out of all of our 5 hours of meeting still hoping for complete restoration, almost making that non-negotiable. I know we arrived at the 20, but if we can, maybe as suggested by Councilmember Nava, add 10 hours. We know what the number is, what the value is. And I think those two things, with tonight's exercise, if we can agree to that, and with the passage, because the other thing we didn't know is really ultimately is usage of the relinquishment interest earned. So if we package all together, I think we can move forward and we can adopt a budget. I know there's specifics that have to be ironed out on that, but I think principally speaking on the amounts, would staff be comfortable us moving forward with
And
that?
if, let's say, maybe using something of what Mayor Pro Tem Hamby suggested, if we're already using the relinquishment funds, let's pass the usage of the entire amount of interest amount, and then have staff develop a plan based on the commentary that we shared with respect to the graffiti abatement, the senior center position, and the janitor position. If there's a way to incorporate that to where it's not a full elimination, I think that, is everybody would be in favor with that?
I think so.
I think we could move forward.
What do you think?
Okay.
Yes, I think that will work.
I mean, that would work if we phrase it
I
that
think
way.
that's perfect.
Would you like to make a motion to that
Yeah,
effect
for the next
at this
6
time,
months.
or we're not done yet?
No, I'm done with presentation. The action item as presented, if you wouldn't mind taking a look at the resolution that is the last page for that entry, so page 242 in your agenda packet. So on that page, you'll see there's a couple blanks that were put in to just, let's see. It's not 242. Hang on. 246. My apologies.
Okay.
Okay. So if you take a look at the way this reso is drafted, you'll see that there's the recitals and then the restated interest accrued on the principal balance of state highway relinquishment funds on deposit with the city of Brawley in the amount of, you could amend that to 450,000. Shall be utilized.
Whatever the maximum
amount is.
Yeah, right, whatever that amount is.
Whatever it is.
That is accrued as of, tell me what the date.
Today.
Today,
We're
probably.
approving it
Accrued
as
as
Let's look at
of-
today.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree with it today, yeah.
Shall be utilized to bridge the difference between revenue.
November 30th, because we're right in the middle of it.
As of
November 30th.
That's fine.
That's fine with me.
It's just, I mean,
What about-
counting days of interest if we're talking about.
Yeah.
2:46 PM?
Yeah.
Okay, so
It
then.
makes the accounting easier, I guess.
that's fine.
Item 2 is an exception to the general fund reserve preservation policy is granted to provide for a level of service deemed necessary to serve public needs. And then it restates that the overall budget is hereby approved. So if that is the wish of the council, we can come back at the next council meeting with a description of what changed.
Yeah.
If that
But it would
works for
be,
you.
it would be an approved budget, what if we make the motion to approve, and then you can move on and do it.
So the detail that we talked about,
Taking feedback in 3 key areas: graffiti abatement, senior center, and janitorial services. I want to make sure I responsibly comment that as these other changes in Parks and Rec are experienced by user groups, I think it's very likely that the council's going to receive feedback on those service level changes. It's wonderful to have the participation that we've had early. I'm not sure everyone receives the same information at the same pace. So there are other interest groups that are out there that are certainly going to be impacted by service level changes. And I just want to be sure I do my part to point out that they'll probably be before the council in the future.
And I think we need to see how that goes. I think we have a 6-month window here that we've got to look at, and then we come back. Once we get some of that input, then we have to discuss those issues. And so at the start of the new, which we're going to start in discussions for the new budget, then we have to talk a little bit about that. But we will have a 6-month window here to take a look at this up until that point, although we'll probably make those decisions before the 6 months is done. And so
what will
maybe we have
happen
a
is,
3-month window.
for instance, as leagues that are scheduled normally to occur in the second half of the fiscal year, those leagues are, for instance, adult softball league
Yes.
or girls softball.
That's one that
Unless
we're really
we're able to get enough community support to restore those services, they'll be presented as canceled.
I think we're aware of that.
Okay.
Okay, I think we have a comment from someone in the public. You want to come up, please, and state your name and address? Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. My name is Deanne Lucky, and I coach the high school swim team. And I've heard tonight about reduced maintenance for the pool and reduced lifeguards and staff, but I haven't specifically heard you say that the heater's going to be turned off. My question is the heater going to be turned off, and for how long?
I think someone from the, Rosanna, you want to respond to that, or Marjo? Okay, thank you.
Hi, I haven't met you yet. Nice to meet you. I've heard good things about you. You're welcome. Staff has been looking at analyzing the gas bills. Excuse me. The pool is currently heated at 78 degrees. We were looking at what would happen if it was heated to 72 degrees, and we all figured everybody would turn blue. So what we're looking at is potentially looking at 75 degrees for the rest of the winter. And part of that is looking at savings because we have new heating equipment and those kinds of things to see if that'll stretch out. We know that some of the organizations that use the pool have major meets, and what we're looking at is a couple weeks before the meet to raise it a couple degrees, let it heat up to that, then raise it again so that it's at least 78 for the meets, and that the organizations, once we let them know all these kinds of things, can have a discussion with Parks and Rec about that. So we're looking at 75 degrees. Okay, so that's what we were talking about.
Yeah. Is there any discussion we've had with the, that's maybe.
I was exactly thinking
Maybe
of that.
Deborah can, let's maybe
was
have a
again.
conversation with her to see if there's a way for them to maybe help subsidize the cost somehow, whether that's reduced.
It's a public benefit.
It is a public benefit, and so maybe there's that discussion.
That would be a
So,
really
I mean,
cool
I think
idea.
thinking outside the box like that, we have to all, really consider these things. So maybe that's something that she can do.
I did think of that.
Did you state
And
the
she did come for
savings?
us.
Did you
Yeah.
state the
Yeah, for
savings,
support for-
or you didn't?
Yeah.
I'm sorry,
I
on the
didn't, but
savings.
when we looked at the budget, we left the gas amount where it was because it was, I think, over the budget last year.
It's pretty substantial.
And it was closed for 3 months last year because that's when they replaced the heaters. So that's another one of those kind of wait till we have 1 or 2 months of gas bills and then we can get a better gauge of what we're doing. Because we did start heating in October because we've been requested earlier in the old days. It was heated basically November through March, and now we get requests from October all the way to April and sometimes closer to May, depending on weather. So that's
But,
what
but
we're
maybe
looking at.
considering just the offset of expense on that would be
big.
It's something to consider. I mean,
Right,
if we don't ask,
exactly.
you know, the answer's no. So
And Marjorie, just part of what we discussed with ad hoc when we did talk about that topic was just the cost of a certain amount of maintenance still has to be maintained. Even if you sort of mothballed the pool, you still have to have the chem, you still got to keep the algae out, you still, so it's really, there's a certain level of overhead that continues regardless.
Regardless,
So
exactly.
you know, that's where we pressed a little bit on, you know, once again, if we, you know, we can keep our institutional users accommodated to whatever extent we have additional
Right.
users with IVDA and some of the other, you know, public users, but we understand, you know, starting with that, we might have to, you know, cut back there, cut back here, but if there was a solution, and maybe further, now that we have maybe a little bit of time, I think
Right.
making the inquiry with, the gas bill is only relevant during the heating, you know, the cold months.
Right, exactly.
So if
And
there's
and if we
something-
can, once we get a couple
something we
months
can look
worth,
at, yeah.
we can tell
Then-
what's going on.
But just as a picture, last year, our power bill for the facility was $51,000.
For the year, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. And I know we've went into great detail of the expense of the pool. Pools are expensive. They're
Right.
expensive facilities to maintain, no question. And so I think I like the idea of, you know, Councilmember Nava mentioned if there's, I mean, it doesn't hurt to ask, and there may be other programs out there, because I know there are assistants, you know, and in some cases, especially for public benefit. So maybe there's
And-
something we can do.
And I
deferred
also would
costs,
like
whatever.
to reiterate that as a department, we talk about this almost every day about what services we can offer, how much they cost, and coming up with a figure of how much it actually costs to, say, have the girls' softball league. We know that if people fundraise, we have an idea of how much they need to raise, and also to look at what's charged per child, because last year it was only $35, which didn't even basically cover the T-shirt, I think, or something.
Right.
So those kinds of things. So we're looking at what we can do, because Brawley's that kind of community that steps up to help out. So we're looking at this every day too. So any of your ideas, we love too.
and-
I love the idea of the fundraising for the pool stuff. I think that's great.
But just things we can control. I mean, I don't think we have a policy like in place for, you know, temperature within buildings. You know what I mean? We don't have that necessarily in place. So there's fluctuation in expense, you know,
Right.
in electrical expense. So those are the things that I think we can control. And if we have some sort of model somewhere, that might be useful in looking at. So it's just those things. I know that when I first started on council, there was a lot of different janitorial services. There was a lot of different things that were repetitive, even alarm services. And so we've been able to cut back expenses on those things, but we haven't done everything that we can. So it's things that we have to consider. Anyway, it's just like a household. Look, when you don't have enough money, you start to cut expenses, right? And ideally, you know, in an ideal world, maybe it's the thermostat set a little warmer, a degree or two. Maybe that saves you enough money. Maybe it's something else. Whatever it is, right?
Exactly.
It's the same thing here. I mean, there's no difference. And so maybe spending less on things that are maybe optional instead of what's necessary, right? So it's those things that we have to consider. And I think sometimes as departments, we don't necessarily look at everything that we can cut before affecting positions. And so that's always my viewpoint, but.
I just, based on George's recommendation, do you want direction to contact the gas company
Already
to see if
took a
they can?
note,
Okay,
yeah.
all right, thank you.
Okay.
That's a good idea, George.
Ready to approve the
Okay,
budget.
thank you, Marjo. Okay, I'm not, I think this is going longer than, does somebody want to entertain a motion at this time?
You want to entertain?
We are making a motion tonight?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, yeah, well, I'll make a motion as per the amendment to the resolution that's presented in the packet. So unless I need to read from that, I think with all that was discussed, I'll make a motion based on
And I'll second
that
that.
record. All right.
Motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to item 6B, discussion and staff direction, read the vacancy on the Parks and Recreation Commission.
Who's the vacant position?
The city is in receipt of a resignation from Mr. Andrew Colas.
That's right, he moved out of town.
And it was requested that this item be added by our mayor to address that vacancy, and the city clerk did have a chance to revisit the last couple of processes as well.
We can advertise again, or we have some applications from years past that I can call the persons and see if they're still interested.
I say let's do that.
You want to do that?
Yeah, let's
Okay.
do that.
I'll call them tomorrow. I'll reach out to them tomorrow, and then maybe at the next council meeting we'll be, okay?
And if that doesn't work, then
Yeah, we'll
open
advertise.
it back
We'll
up
just go
again.
like we normally do. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Uh-huh.
Okay, moving on, 6C, discussion and potential action, regular city council meeting date of December 17th, 2019.
I'll chime in if
Okay.
it's okay,
there a conflict?
Mayor, that I just presented a challenge and conflict with my schedule, but certainly would not, I yield to the council and to the mayor if that meeting needs to go on. I just want to at least afford the opportunity to publicly state that I'll have a challenge attending that particular meeting.
17th.
So if there's consideration of any alternatives, I am certainly not in any way, shape, or form imposing that, but certainly thought, it would be appropriate just to bring up that.
What other
at the next
dates,
meeting.
would you be available that week, or are you out the whole week? or-
I think depending on, obviously, how things are ending, and obviously, I think every one of us, this council works very, very hard to make sure that certainly doesn't happen, and I just want, obviously, everyone here to know and the public know that I did everything I could to deconflict that, but that's just not going to happen to me primarily due to work, so outside of that, I would still make the suggestion, unless there's a compelling reason, either to keep that date, unless you, maybe staff thinks there's some.
I think when we, looked at the alternatives, Councilmember Wharton, we were, the dates that week, I think you said there was a potential for one day in that week, but then the week of Christmas was out because you thought it was just too
Yeah.
difficult.
Yeah, I think that's.
So-
do it on Christmas Day.
We don't, if I'm
I
not
think that's
mistaken.
difficult for all of
I think
us
Your
that week,
mention
so.
was this, if I'm not mistaken, it was the 16th, but.
Yeah, and I think that's become an issue. So again, yeah, I think so. That really, truly, as far as again, if this was a count of me, would just be doing something earlier. So my suggestion, if we move forward there, if there's something really pressing, there's always the alternative, either special meeting or it waits to the beginning of the year, the first meeting. So-
I've got some conflict with, well, I don't have a conflict with the 17th necessarily, but I do have conflict with the 19th, the 20th, the 13th. I mean, there's a whole bunch of days that I
Yeah.
have that are, I've got things scheduled in the
What
evening.
about all of 2020? Do you have any?
All of 2020, no, the rest of 2020,
Solid.
I'm okay.
I don't have a problem with us.
I could do the
if-
16th probably, or the 30th, but I don't think. I
If
have
there's
any
no urgent
option.
need for a meeting, maybe we could just, unless we need one, then we can call a
There's always
special
going
meeting.
dark.
I think we have our second readings of ordinances and.
I think that's, and then the
If
LTA.
there's
The,
nothing else,
yeah,
let's
no, the
have a
LTA
meeting.
No,
won't
okay,
go.
so
It
we
won't
just
be
have
ready
that
until
second-
January at
we
least.
just can wait
Rosanna,
for the
Rosanna,
second reading.
I just say,
Okay.
maybe proceed with the schedule, if that's okay
Right.
with the, yeah.
Just for the
staff and
scheduled
mayor.
meeting, as he's
Yeah.
saying. So.
As needed?
Yeah,
No,
Oh,
he's saying
on the
just to
17th.
just proceed with the
Do
meeting.
the meeting
I
on
just
the
won't be here,
17th?
So then, yeah.
You want to
Keep
do
everything
council
intact,
members?
yeah.
It's okay with me. I mean, I don't.
If it was, final adoption or something of it, but, that maybe that's something different, but I think.
Summer second readings, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, they can be delayed to the first meeting in January, or, that, I was just kind of
Our
running
first
through.
meeting would be the 7th,
Correct.
so we could, I mean,
Yeah,
is there any
the
desire to
second
go
reading
dark
is-
the rest of
It
the
does not
month?
have to be in the following.
Do you think that there's anything that, is that pressing?
No,
For the rest of this
the
month?
only item we were looking to potentially schedule, I think, is no longer an issue, which had to do with the LTA bond refinancing. I think it's gonna roll into January. They're not
Okay.
ready as a
Do
group
Yeah,
yet.
let's do that.
And then we just
I'm
have
okay
that
with
second reading.
Why don't
That
we
was
just
it.
go dark then for
The rest
the
of the
rest
month?
of
For the
December?
17th
So
for
we'll
this.
go
and
to
then-
January, yeah.
yeah.
Right.
If we have to have a
At the end of
special
the-
meeting, we can always call it, I guess, at this point in time.
Okay, everybody's in agreement? Luke,
Yeah.
I
you're
wanna
okay
have
with
that.
that?
I want to have that meeting on the 17th.
Yeah, me too.
Okay,
No, that sounds
we'll
good.
go ahead and just go dark.
Okay.
Yeah. If we go
That
ahead.
way none of us miss anything.
Yeah. So make sure, thank you.
Uh-huh.
You'd always come in here and just sit in your chair.
Okay, we'll go
We'd
ahead and
probably
move on
move
to
you over.
informational reports. Record of building permits for October 2019 was prepared by Oscar Escalante, and it's in your packet, pages 243, 244.
Simply there is an information item.
Okay. And then,
Some department.
departmental reports, monthly staff report for December 2019, prepared by Personnel and Risk Management Administrator Shirley Bonillas. page
Honorable Mayor,
245.
Councilmember Shirley Bonillas, Personnel and Risk Management. As stated under PD, we do have the one police commander position now officially frozen. 4 police officers, we did get our 5th resignation for number 5, so they are now all vacant that you passed the budget on. And we are in backgrounds with the 3 police officers, still candidates are in backgrounds, as well as 2 dispatchers and CSO. We have a couple of retirements this month, one in wastewater and then one in the building inspector. They just want to go quietly, and they thank the city of Brawley for their time with us. And that's all I have, and of course, I'll answer any questions I'm able to.
Any questions from anyone? Okay.
Thank you,
Thank you,
ma'am.
Shirley. Okay, update by Public Works Director Guillermo Cias.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. Guillermo Sillas, Public Works Director. Regarding the water treatment plant sedimentation basins component replacement project, today, December 3rd, we had a conference call with the contractor, with the construction manager and city staff to review the project progress. The contractor informed that they had to push the mobilization demolition to the next week due to the manufacturer pushing their delivery date. We asked him to provide us with the correspondence from the manufacturer stating their estimated delivery date for the parts. Any questions?
Any questions? Okay.
Is that thing
That-
just
I
busted?
think it broke.
Did break.
There it is. He fixed it.
He fixed it, maybe.
It's called Public Works Department.
Now it broke.
There we go.
There you go.
The next one is status of the pumps 422 and 423 rehabilitation. The emergency continues. The contractor continues working on the rehabilitation of pump 422 and keeps the date to bring back to the plant approximately by he said, end of November, early December. We haven't received any updates on that, so hopefully the early December he will bring it back for installation. The next project is the temporary traffic signal cabinet installed on Main Street and Cesar Chavez. The temporary signal cabinet has been working properly since October 7, 2019. Contractor informed us that the permanent cabinet is expected to be shipped by November 29, so it should have happened already, and that he will inform us when he receives it, so for installation.
Okay.
Okay.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, announcement of special events by Library Director, Interim Parks and Recreation Director, Marjo Mello.
I have a long title,
Yes, you do.
but I'm enjoying both jobs, by the way. Okay, I get to bring the fun stuff now that we've gone through all the hard stuff. The hard stuff will continue, but at least the decision was made. First off is the tree lighting ceremony tomorrow night, about 5:30, right at the kiosk. We have the kiosk lights on. We're hoping staff can get some of the trees done, but because we kept vacillating back and forth of whether we were going to be able to do it or not, we did not get a good start on putting the lights on. We also have several strands that we've looked at that aren't going to work. So when we do get the rest of the lights up, it's going to be a little bit more limited this year, but we'll have light. because that's important.
And if it rains tomorrow, we will be bringing in our Christmas carolers into the council chambers and
Do it right here.
featuring a tree.
That'll work.
Okay.
That'll
It
work.
may rain,
It
according
may
to
rain. It's
the
supposed to
Weather
70%
Channel.
chance.
There's a
of it.
pretty high likelihood
It's
of rain.
probably gonna rain.
Did I wear my wig?
Yeah.
And the library has room too if we end up over there, just for fun.
We have a
You don't
nice
have one of those hats with an
costume
umbrella on it?
Umbrella, yeah.
I'll just do
We
like
have
a
plenty of
pizza.
costumes.
Yeah, George.
I'm sorry,
George,
I'm just
we need a Santa.
visualizing everybody with those hats with the
We
beer
have a
cans
Santa.
and
Oh,
the tubes that come
okay.
down. Not quite Christmassy. And then, speaking of the library, the Angel Tea is Thursday. Yay, yes.
Tamales this year?
It is
Tamales,
tamales.
not
She
pizza?
is not in the
Not
hospital yet. I've been
Not pizza?
checking
Yet.
checking with everybody every 4 hours to make sure she's okay. Because
Pizza
last
flavored?
year we got the call at 4:30 and it started last year at 5:30. So,
And so you got pizza.
but yeah, exactly.
Okay.
And
Pizza pockets, they
It
could be
isn't-
like
It isn't
tamales.
tamales.
No, it wasn't
It
tamales,
wasn't
that's for
tamales.
well, we could have like rolled them up. Never mind.
Pizza pocket
It
style.
wasn't gonna work.
That's a cool idea. But we're really looking forward to it. We're going to start serving food earlier this year at 5 because we know the DTSC event is at 6. And we know that some of you are probably going to try to split time or have official people go. And we just want everybody to at least get a tamale before they go do other things. So we're just trying to make sure we have that.
Thank
We
you,
have,
appreciate it.
yeah, we have 2 honorees this year that we're really excited about honoring. Hopefully we'll have some Elks show up.
Oh, that'd be cool.
Yeah. Weren't you supposed to call them?
No,
Okay. I'll call them.
no, I
Anyway.
wasn't. Not that I'm aware
That's
of.
what I was told, but never
Oh,
mind.
well.
Okay.
Good job.
I'll be there. I'm an elk.
True.
Hey, I mean,
But
you know.
anyway, we want to honor the Elks for 4 years of backpacks. This last year was 81.
I will
And every
notify
year
them.
it's 60 to 80 something backpacks, which is incredible. And it's a grant that they apply for. And I love it because Dr. Stillman moved to Arkansas and he's still writing the grant. So that's cool. They have a new person taking it over, but he still has his fingers in the pie. Or the tamales. I probably should mail him some, huh? And then next week on Thursday, we are going to have a program on coin collecting. And it will be presented by Sam Couchman, who's done that at different places. He has a PowerPoint, and then we'll probably have lots of people asking questions and bringing in their coins, which you're welcome to do, and look at it. And we have some new coin books at the library for people to use as reference for
No,
that.
I thought it was the IRS, but okay.
Hey, whatever.
And I have more stuff. So we weren't also sure until the last day or two if we were going to have the Christmas movie this year. We are going to have the Christmas movie with some donations. It will be Friday, December 20th at 6 o'clock, and the movie will be Rise of the Guardians. And we'll also have a guy there with a red suit, too. So we're happy about that. And then for the basketball league that we have now for kids, we have just over 300 kids signed up, which is incredible. And we had 400 for soccer. So we know how popular the programs are. We're looking forward to keep trying to do the best we can to have our programs. So I just wanted to let everybody know that we're really, really excited about that.
What was the other number? You said 300 and?
We have a little over 300 kids for basketball, and for soccer, we had a little over 400.
400.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gee,
And they go from kindergarten through 8th grade.
wow. It's a lot of kids.
It's a lot of kids. So the gym will be completely full and noisy for many weeks.
For many weeks.
Been there. yeah.
Been there, done
Been there,
that.
yeah.
Been there, done that.
Okay, and that's the goodies that I have to report. Much happier news.
Thank you.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you.
Thank you, Marjo.
Thank you, Marjo.
Appreciate that. Okay, we'll move on to the city council member reports. And we'll go ahead and start with, should we just, do we
Usually
change
we
it?
run like
Okay.
this.
We'll
gonna
change it,
start
we'll
with
change
the-
it at the next meeting.
Okay,
Yeah.
next meeting I'll change it. We'll start with you, Luke.
Okay, thank you, Madam Mayor. I don't have a lot to report, but I missed something at the last meeting, and that I believe I missed it anyway. I have to go back and watch the video, but I was able to attend an honor ceremony that Assemblyman Eduardo Garcia put on for a local distinguished veteran, Tracy Roscoe, and just honoring him for his service to the American Legion and his service to the country. So that was a nice event in his honor. He's done a lot for Imperial Valley since he moved here several years ago. I attended the appreciation lunch for PD and Fire that was put on by the House of Bread Ministries and the EOC over here. That was a nice event. It got started a little late because both PD and Fire were on an emergency call, an accident out by Walmart. But I took my little boy there, and there was a lot to see and do, so we had a good time there and good food. I just want to congratulate again our new mayor and thank Donnie on his way out of that seat for taking care of everything you did this year. I hope everyone had a safe and happy Thanksgiving. It was a good time of year, and I want to apologize in advance that I'm not going to be in attendance at either the tree lighting ceremony or the Angel Tea Party because I committed to playing the violin for the concert that's going to be put on by the Master Chorale and the Imperial Valley Symphony for Handel's Messiah that's going to be at Christ Community Church in El Centro on Thursday evening, but we have a dress rehearsal tomorrow evening, and the concert, we have to be there at 5 both evenings. So last year we did not have that concert, so I didn't have the conflict, and the year before that, I think we had the concert on November 30th or something, so I didn't have this conflict, so I apologize for missing that.
If I can request something of you because
Sure.
of that, please.
Okay.
At our next meeting, if you can come in maybe 20 minutes early and play for us.
Okay.
I'd like to
All
hear
right.
that. I'm serious.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, I'll bring the violin and
Cool.
I'd like a show.
I am going to be playing first violin, the concert master. So
Awesome.
if for some reason you, I don't know, get done early and you want to drive to El Centro and peek in at the last of the concert, you can do that. But
Cool.
That sounds good.
And I'm serious about that. I want to
okay,
hear you. Yeah.
all right.
Okay.
And that's it for my report.
Okay, thank you. Sam?
I don't have a lot to report either. We had a nice Thanksgiving, the family here locally. I did attend today the Brawley Union High School Career Technical Education meeting. It was more, it was a bigger meeting than what we normally have. Quite a few people there and people from the high school. We talked about career. We talked about some things that they're doing in their educational process over there, where they did it. At one time, the high schools did away with shop. Now they brought it all back. So they're doing a lot of career technical stuff over there, nursing, law enforcement, some welding, building and construction, culinary arts, and some other things there. And I'm kind of aware of that because I've been over there with IVROP, who does a lot of the vocational type training. And also I took a tour of the high school, see what they're working on, and they've got a lot of projects in the works. They're also talking about building a 2-story building for their STEM, which is their science, technology, engineering, and math, or something like that. And so there's a STEM building, and they're going to build a 2-story building over there, and they're probably going to have to come to the city and ask us for some help with that. And so I told them we're standing by, and when they're ready to do that, to please come by and talk with us. And then they're setting up some plans for building some additional classrooms. They're going to take away some classrooms to make this building, and then they're going to have to produce some additional classrooms on that site. And they're kind of landlocked right now, so they're working with that. And I would expect that within the next year.
Build a parking lot. That's what they need to do.
Well, that's a problem for them, and they just don't have the ground to build that.
They do.
They are going to do something possibly where the old the greenhouse, the old greenhouse, and some of that area over there. And I also saw our former chief of police. He's over there teaching the law enforcement classes for them, and so I was able to meet with him. But that's all I really have to report. Thank you.
George?
I'll just keep it very brief. I did get an opportunity to go down to the County Board of Supervisors meeting along with Councilmember Couchman, and we were, presented, it was a check ceremony with Assemblymember Garcia, and so it was a CDBG award of $500,000 for the city of Brawley, and so we got a little bit of exposure there, and that was great, and we also got some TV exposure, so it's good to get people to apply for those funds to help improve their homes here in the city of Brawley. So I do want to thank staff and everybody else for being patient, the public too. This has been a long process. I mean, as you all know, if you've participated, I know that on city council, there's also things that are in closed session that we don't discuss with staff and the public, but it's been a very difficult process to get where we're at, and so I want to thank you for your patience. It's been some tough decisions that we've had to make, but quite frankly, it's very difficult. I know that it impacts people's lives, and not just employees, but the service levels for our residents and for us as well. I mean, it's just not something that we take lightly or look at and dismiss. We certainly hear, when people have concerns with respect to their pay and respect to their employment here in the city. I know it's very difficult for all of us, but I do want to thank you for your patience and for your input. It's been a difficult process for us, but as we all know that there are things that really are out of our control, whether it's litigation, whether it's just rising costs, whether it's unsupported mandates from the state of California or other things.
Mhm.
It just gets more and more expensive to operate, and when you multiply that times the well over 100 employees, it just becomes very expensive. So at any rate, I just want to say thank you for your patience and for your input. It's been a difficult time, so that's it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, George. Don?
Yeah, very good. And I'm sure we already mentioned it earlier, but Sam and I did spend the extra couple days of scheduling some time, and again, appreciate staff's time and council affording that opportunity. I think it helped us get through the budget process tonight, and echoing really what George just shared. This really the work continues, so it's not like what we talked about tonight is the end all be all. This is going to be an ongoing process, and it's just a reminder for all of us that I mentioned it earlier in my comments, outgoing as mayor, that we're resilient. We will get through this, and we will. What goes down comes up, and sometimes what's up, does come down, as it kind of follows the market. But I'm extremely confident we'll work through this, and I want to also echo our relatively new finance director coming on board and really taking on a load, with what had to be done to get us to this point. So, and I know behind that with all of staff, contributing to that, and Rosanna. So just, I know that work continues. I, for one, will, along with council, we're going to stay dedicated to the work that's ahead of us for the next, upcoming round of budget talks. So, outside of that, I certainly, this is a time of the year really to stop, reflect, enjoy your blessings and what you have now. And these are the things I try to tell myself and my family. And we really got to, instead of just talking about really what's bad, it's also, let's talk about the blessings we have. We're lucky to live in this community. We're lucky to work around some of the folks that we work around and live with the people that we live around, and we're blessed to be in this country and this community. So, I mean, I try to tell myself that on a daily basis, and I'm confident moving forward with this staff and with this team that we'll continue to work through the tougher issues. And then the final thing is I know as we're meeting, it's kind of city business, but I haven't brought up the fitness thing, but the new year's coming, so I don't want to be too late and anyone here to be upset, but I'm going to start a weekly run club. We're going to meet at Cattle Call. And it's not every day, it's just one day a week. I invite all my council members, staff, members of the public. You just literally show up. It's going to be early, 6 in the morning. I know to George, he's already half done with his day by then because he gets up even earlier. But if you show up at the top of Cattle Call, there's a lot of us that have been meeting there to go cycle, but it's just simply to socialize the plans you already have, maybe the New Year plans. But it's to get you walking, so Sam, you can walk.
No, I'll be the pace car.
You
I've decided to be your pace car. I'll just drive along beside you and yell encouragement. Or throw stuff.
I will send to all my friends that I have on social media what'll be. It'll have its own Facebook page. So just, it's one morning a week. It's to get folks, started that are probably already doing something, but somewhere we can show up and we can walk and run and jog together. We'll see how it grows. If it grows, then maybe we can make it a little bit more official and actually have a Brawley Run Club or something like that. But
not just that, even expanded to include like Hinojosa one time, you know, where there's
Yeah.
workout equipment and stuff like that.
We can move.
Yeah.
Totally
Gotcha.
flexible.
Yeah.
I love these kind of clubs because there's no rules and other than just show up. So doesn't require a bike, doesn't require, expensive equipment or anything. Just literally show up 6 a.m, off we go, and we're going to go from there.
And I can
So
show up without makeup?
Fully charged.
You show up without makeup, please don't.
It's harder for women.
We're going to try to sweat it off if we can, but we're going to get a little bit of a movement, and I just thought about, I had a few other attempts at things like triathlon and other events. I'm not going to vacate that. Maybe we'll come back to that, somewhere down the road, but this is something we can do now. And so look for the invite and look for the scuttlebutt once we get to the new year. That'll be going on.
Okay, very good.
Can you make it a run walk?
Good goal.
That'd be awesome.
I'm
Can you
gonna-
make it a run
I'm
walk,
gonna-
honey?
I'm gonna try to commit, I'm gonna.
Crawl,
That's
whatever.
not a commitment, is it? I was gonna say, I'm gonna try to commit,
Yeah.
that's not a commitment.
Luke, I'll carry you for, whatever,
right.
about 50 feet, 50 feet.
Thank you, Donnie. That was good.
It's gonna be hard carrying Donnie, it's gonna be hard carrying Luke when you're carrying me. I don't know if you can do both of us.
I think he can. Oh, I don't know.
You think he can?
Okay, he probably can. Okay, I'm gonna keep it really short. I think I could echo all the comments that have already been made about how difficult these past few months have been for everybody. And we appreciate all the hard work. And, I know that everybody cares very much about all the employees, and we don't, it's not easy for us to make some of these decisions, but I think in the end, we're gonna do good. These 6 months, we'll be able to figure out where we are, and I think it's going to be a good ending to this trial period that we've had with all these cases. And again, just to thank Rosanna and Bill and Alma and all the staff and our finance director and everybody for all their hard work. And we're going to be bugging you still, I'm sure, for more information, but it's just to make sure that everybody in the community understands that we're doing the best job we can to keep those services available for them. And I hope everybody had a nice Thanksgiving. I did. I had all my kids and grandkids over, so I hope that all of you enjoy the rest of the holiday season and stay safe. Thank you. Okay, and now we'll move on to city manager report.
3 quick items to report out. The first is I wanted to make council aware that Brawley Union High School has reached out to the city to begin some discussions about how we might be able to complement one another's staffing and maintenance related duties. And so we'll potentially have some information to come back to you with in the not so distant future. We always have been the beneficiary of some really, really great dialogue with our counterparts at the high school district. And when the superintendent became a little bit better acquainted with what was happening within Parks and Recreation, he reached out, and what I committed to was following up with him after tonight's budget adoption to talk through what some possibilities might be. Wanted to also note that we will be participating in Career Day at Barbara Worth, and we hope that some of you might be able to join in. We'll be working across city departments to furnish a number of different representatives on varied career paths, and look forward to supporting our local school site with some enthusiastic presenters. And then last but not least, I know the existing DMV property was a recent topic that reached council members relative to some of the private property matters in the surrounding area of the existing DMV. And wanted to share with council and the public that we're excited to have received a recent update on the prospects for a new DMV location in our city limits, and we're hoping before the end of December for the site selection process to take its next step, including site visits from the Department of General Services and DMV personnel here in our Brawley city limits. So it's moving along, and the opportunity to view the sites as well as work through the proposals of each of the interested property owners, I think will yield the best result for our North County needs. So with that, that's all I've got to report at this time.
Great news, thank you. Okay, Bill? Nothing to report? Alma?
See you tomorrow at the tree lighting ceremony.
Oh.
We'll be elves.
Oh,
Rosanna.
yes, we're going to be elves.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
So we
Thank
have
you.
extra suits.
Thank you for telling me.
Do they have a little one?
Okay, that, I guess,
No, we can just take a break.
okay. We're going to take a break, and thank you all for attending, and we'll be going into closed session now. Thank you all.